Hey hunters! Welcome back to Anime Fanfic Corner, the only place on YouTube dedicated exclusively to Hunter x Hunter audiobooks. Today, we're diving into another awesome fanfic, 20th Century Boy in HxH. Big shout out to the original author, their info's in the description, so definitely check them out and show some love for crafting this amazing story. If you're new here and love HxH as much as I do, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and become an official hunter. To keep your immersion smooth, I only do intros and outros at the start and end of playlists, so you can enjoy the story with no interruptions. Also, don't sleep on the community tab. I run polls, ask fun questions, and your votes help decide what drops next on the channel. Alright, let's get into it. Peace. Love you all. Chapter 1 was the author's intro. So skipping to Chapter 2. Chapter 2. Huh? Where the hell? Waking up and looking around at the unfamiliar scenery, or at least something similar to waking up. Having been deprived of 4 of my 5 senses, I could only stare at the indescribable space I found myself inside of. Hello? Is anyone or anything here? Speaking aloud, or what I assumed was speaking due to being unable to feel my lips move or hear my words within this space that were constantly in flux. Trying to get a hold of my situation and rationalize got me nowhere though, as nothing happened. Man. This feels drippy, just floating here for however long I have been here. As time slowly slipped by, I began verbally speaking to myself as a form of keeping myself entertained or sane in this long stint in this void. I mean, Tom Hanks got a cool volleyball. And I got myself. Sigh. After an indefinite amount of time I slipped into a state of silence as I got something reminiscent of sleep. My name is HxH. I'm 20 years old. My house is in the northeast section of Morio, where all of the villas are, and I am not in a relationship. I work as an employee for the nearby corner store, and I get home every day by 8 p.m. at the latest. I don't smoke, but I occasionally drink. I'm in bed by 12 p.m. and make sure I get about 6 hours of sleep, no matter what. After having a glass of warm milk and doing about 20 minutes of stretches before going to bed, I usually have no problem sleeping until morning. Just like a baby, I wake up without any fatigue or stress in the morning. As I was about to finish my monologue, I was cut short as something finally changed regarding my situation. As exciting as it is to hear you shamelessly rip off the works of Haruhiko Araki, I must stop you right there. You see, after your death, which I can only describe as truly pathetic, a voice, one that was seemingly comprised of an entire spectrum of voices, rang out interrupting my admittedly embarrassing ramblings. Hey. Well, not that I really remember or want to remember it. Wait. Another person. Please do not interrupt while I am speaking. It is quite rude, you know? Ignoring my outburst, he patronizes me in an almost teasing voice as he paused for a moment afterward. Ah, my bad, do go on. Quickly replying, trying to quickly remember the conventions of conversation. Anyways, you are dead and normally you are supposed to be thrown back into the cycle of reincarnation that your world resides in. However, I am currently rather bored. Managing the endless cycle of reincarnation, unfortunately, comes with endless paperwork. That's rough. Indeed, that is why I decided to throw the next soul who came before me into a randomly selected isolated timeline as a form of entertainment. Simply put, this is the isekai situation your degenerate ass has been wishing for your entire life. Rambling of those lines like they have been repeated innumerable times, the voice dryly rang off. First, that hurt even though it's true, and second, I am not sure if I'm comfortable having someone watch over my entire life. Unsure of how to respond to the situation, I decided to just make my grievances known. Isn't that hypocritical? It's essentially the same as you reading all those isekai fanfics you love so much. Responding in a bored tone, the voice easily conveying that there was no real room for bargaining. I mean, yeah. But it's me now instead of someone else. Definitely don't want some random omni. Still not really comfortable with the whole idea of my entire life being viewed for someone else's pleasure. I weakly contested the proposal. Don't. Unfortunately, however, it seemed I stepped on some sort of sore spot. I guess he doesn't like the nickname commonly used in all those fanfics I read. A stronger existence watching over my life as entertainment, even if it's a double standard. Collecting myself for a moment, I once again tried to reason with whomever I was talking to. Sigh sadly for you, I was explaining the situation, not asking if you wanted to go. With that out of the way, I will get on to the next part, that being what boon you will receive before you go off to a new world. Quickly crushing all concerns for my privacy, the voice pushed the conversation forward. Perhaps he was getting impatient dealing with myself. Okay. Is this the part where I receive an op system or power? Trying to look on the upside, I thought back to all the fictitious stories I read concerning reincarnation. Man, what all was it again? 3 wishes, random BS powers that bust power scaling, and all sorts of stuff I wouldn't mind having. As my anticipation began to slowly accelerate, it was quickly shot down by the voice within a moment. Hell no, even you know that those stories are boring as hell or devolve into Pokemon games collecting every woman in sight. Speaking once again with clear annoyance in his voice as he trailed off and paused for a monument. I mean, piecing the clues together, this probably isn't his time doing all this. So he probably hates watching out the same few tropes and scenarios being portrayed? Guessing the reason for his annoyance, I mentally nodded my head in satisfaction before speaking again. Okay, that is fair. So what am I getting out of all of this? Deciding to not further annoy whoever it was I was dealing with, I decided to pick up the pace a bit. Instead, you will receive a randomly selected character from a fiction work, and then either their knowledge, powers, skills, or experience will then be adapted to whatever world you are going to. Rattling off the various benefits quickly in a manner similar to medicine commercials talking about adverse symptoms, the voice finished speaking shortly after Hugh started. How exactly? Somewhat stunned and confused, I was about to ask for details. Again, do not interrupt while I am speaking. Most if not all of your questions shall be answered. Capiche? Cutting me off for interrupting once again, the voice raised his voice in an irate manner. Yeah? Figuratively shrinking back from the outburst, I quickly responded in confirmation while making sure to shut up. In simplest terms, your boon will be modified for that world so you do not get rejected by the world itself. After all, world wills do not exactly like foreign power systems or entities existing in its domain. In this case, your boon will be formatted to your respective world, which is the world of HxH. If you still do not understand, let's say you got the power of the gum fruit and were sent to a technology-based world. Having received the boon of the gum fruit, you would have a talent or knack in, say, creating mechanical limbs that could stretch or extend. Or if got the powers of Flynn from SMT4 and were sent to a magic world, you would be great at taming/summoning magic. Do you understand? Finally going into length about how the boons would work, I was interested in the concept of being able to get powers from various media and adapting to whatever world so as not to destroy the balancing of that world too much. Yeah, but what exactly is my boon then? Quite excited to get started, I asked the voice, eagerly awaiting a response. Don't know, only for all my excitement to once again come crashing down. Clap clap, therefore, we shall spin a wheel, as I don't really have a better way of doing this. Speaking in a calm, measured tone, the voice began trailing off near the end into a silent mutter that was barely audible. Oi. Protagonist POV. Looking at the large multicolored wheel that seemingly appeared out of nowhere, I was worried. After all, whatever the outcome of this wheel would determine my survival in the world of HxH. I mean, sure, it's no Dragon Ball, but the power creep in HxH is no joke. I mean, just look at the MV Netero fight compared to the humble beginnings of the show. I don't even want to imagine what horrors exist outside of the context of the anime and manga. Thinking about what I heard secondhand about the manga and the Dark Continent and its horrors, I began staring at the wheel, hoping that I got something good. As the wheel slowly started to accelerate, my focus peaked as I stared intently at the large wheel. What felt like hours was mere moments as the wheel began to lose some of its initial momentum. Consequently, as it began to lose speed, I was able to make out some of the writing on each section of the wheel. Man, some of those are sick. Raiden from MGR, Smaug from The Hobbit, Narukami Yu, the fourth Hokage, Zombie Man from OPM, Gun Devil from Chainsaw Man, and even some weirder ones. For instance, who the hell put Goomba from Mario on this thing? And God forbid landing on that Yamcha space, what would that even do for me? Plus 100% to have the poor man's rose installed in your chest. Quickly focusing again, I looked back at the wheel and ignored some of my more absurd thoughts. Finally, the wheel began to slow down as it painstakingly flicked onto the selected panel. Having selected a purplish-red space that read magenta-magenta from JoJos. Third person. Ho? This will be certainly interesting. Your boon shall be the power of magenta-magenta from SBR, formatted as an innate talent/structure for your nen ability. With that, it'll send you off to a suitable mature body, as I have no interest in seeing a baby shit itself or lust after its own mother during breastfeeding. And with a tone of finality, he finishes speaking, returning the space to silence once again. Can I at least choose what I low, trying to milk the situation out of everything I could? I was about to ask to edit my appearance. Though before I could finish speaking I was knocked unconscious. And with that, our protagonist, whose name was never uttered, has been sent off to his next life. Chapter 3. With a jolt, I find myself in what appears to be a large underground auditorium, dimly lit by an industrial light fixture above head, giving the already tense atmosphere an eerie touch. Looking around and seeing a sea of other people with odd or eccentric appearances wearing numbered badges, only one conclusion could be drawn from my surroundings. Fuck, I'm in the hunter exam from the show. Thrown right into the heat of things, huh? I originally wanted slowly build up a strong foundation and learn then before even thinking of trying my luck to become a hunter. After all, not everyone has some BS 1 in a million talent or plot armor. Well, at least things will be interesting for our resident voyeur, I suppose. Trying to calmly grasp the situation I found myself in upon transmigration, I began sorting through what I knew regarding the series while also registering my surroundings. Oh? What's all this? Sorting through a myriad of different thoughts or possible actions, I quickly realize a sizable amount of foreign information has found its way into my head. Nothing concerning, the opposite, in fact, things like language, use of currency, basic geography I hadn't remembered from the show, where I was, my current situation, and finally my new identity. So my new name is literally magenta-magenta. Well, I'm in an anime world where the fat-ass pig Toonpa over there can run an entire marathon and some old geezer could kill me with a flick of his finger, so my name is not that weird. Chuckling at the thought of getting held up on my new name when considering my untimely death and transmigration to a world I previously thought was fiction. It seems from my new memories that I arrived a bit early and have been waiting around for quite a while. Another odd thing to note was that I actually look like magenta-magenta from SBR, with exception of this number 38 badge pinned to the lapel of my coat. Nevertheless, I suppose I'll just wait around till things start. Though I have no clue how well my new body will handle the upcoming tests. Walking to the outskirts of the large crowded side of the tunnel, I sat down against the wall before starting to sort out my thoughts. Other POV. As three individuals received their applicant badges, a rather short big-bodied man wearing a blue tunic approached them. Yo. I'm Toonpa, pleased to meet you. You're a bunch of new faces, right? With a large disarming grin on his face neared them as he offered his hand to the three, seemingly welcoming them into the conjugation of people within the tunnel. How did you know that? Replied a short boy with spiky green hair wearing green outdoor clothes of a similar shade to his hair. On his back, you could spot another similarly colored daysite with a telescoping fishing rod strapped to its side. In response to the boy's questions, the now-named Toonpa replied. Of course, I know. Since I was 10 years old I've taken this exam 35 times. I guess you could call me a veteran. If there's anything you want to know, feel free to ask me. Inching closer to the group, Toonpa attempted to throw his arm around the shoulders of the small boy as they were of similar heights. Though, said attempts failed as the boy dodged out of the way, leaving Toonpa in an awkward situation. Thanks, mister, was the curt reply of the green-haired boy, ignoring the plight of the short-statured man. Looking behind the boy in green, Yukid his two companions. First, was a tall man wearing a three-piece suit along with a pair of sunglasses talking to the second, a blonde-haired individual of normal stature wearing a collared ornamental poncho over a set of baggy white pants and shirt. If one were to listen closely you could hear them discuss the validity of their new acquaintance's usefulness. "Oh, then do you know everybody here?" curiously asked Gon, looking at the numerous other applicants to the 287th Hunter's exam. "Of course. Let me introduce everyone," immediately jumping on the chance to earn favor with the group of newcomers. Following this exclamation, Tunpa began to introduce fellow test-takers both new and old to the trio. In much the same manner in the show, Tunpa introduced everyone with exception of examinee number 38. "And who's that weird bum over there in all purple sleeping against the wall? He doesn't seem all that dangerous compared to the other guys," loudly exclaimed the tall lanky man with sunglasses, earning the ire of the nearby crowd for disturbing the relatively quiet or hushed atmosphere. "Oi! Leorio, have some class. It's rude to call someone that, and even then his coat isn't purple," chided the blonde boy next to the just-named Leorio. Though he had to admit the sleeping man was quite the standout compared to the tense atmosphere of the crowd that was surrounding him. "Ah, that's number 38, magenta-magenta. Not only is his appearance odd but so is his name. Besides those standouts, he seems to be a whimsical individual. Just like you three, he is also a rookie at the Hunter exams, though he seems like he has a pretty sharp head on his shoulders, so watch out," lectured Tunpa to the interest of the other three. Though he himself had to agree with his warning. "I mean, he even figured out that the juice was tampered with as soon as I handed it to him." Thinking back on his short encounter with the rookie with sharp intuition, he shook his head in displeasure before moving on to find another rookie to harass. First POV. Looking at Tunpa described me as essentially a lazy bastard with a good head on his shoulder was depressing. Well, there goes that first impression on our friendly neighborhood protagonist. Such a shame I could hug his leg to victory. Sitting up straight and pushing my hat back on my head so it wasn't covering my eyes, I looked at the backs of the protagonist trio. Oh well, I'll definitely talk to him later. I mean, who wouldn't talk to some of their favorite childhood characters? I mean, HxH was one of my first animes alongside FMA and Bleach, so it truly is exciting to Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika, who I'm pretty sure is a guy. Could never be sure, as those doujins have taught me. Looking on as the following events played out similarly to the anime, I began to tune everything out as my mind sunk deeper into whatever gutter it found itself in. Eventually, I was pulled out of my thoughts as an odd alarm went off, gaining everyone in the tunnel's attention. 8 comment. Well, looks like the show's about to start, huh? I thought as I stand up and collect myself. Chapter 4. Man, this new body is pretty sweet, I thought to myself as I slowly gained distance from the latter half of the contestants, i.e. all the mob characters who would get decimated in the Swindler's Swamp if they could even make it there in time. One thing to note though, compared to my past life I am much more physically fit. Except that's not a real tall order due to me being an indoors person whose hobbies were all mostly done indoors. Getting out of my thoughts, I looked around my surroundings and could only sigh in boredom. After all, I tried to conserve energy as I had no idea how strong I am currently, but that left me near the back of the lean-down cut of contestants and there was no one to talk to or really nothing to do besides running this monotonous tunnel. It seems I'll have to take back that earlier thought. It looks like Leorio is falling behind alongside Gon. Guess I'll say hi or something? Nearing the 2 I saw Leorio's state as he was decelerating. Yo. You good? I ask in consideration of his state. I mean, he's practically sweating buckets after roughly 3 hours of running after all. Pant huh? Like hell. Nothing is going to stop me from being a hunter. God damn it, he shouted as he began to sprint back into the main crowd with an exaggerated gait that was probably the main reason he was so tired out. Ah. Was I just ignored? Talking to myself out loud, a rather poor habit from my past life, causing a handful of issues for my past self. Sorry about him, he can come off a bit rude. Apologizing on Leorio's behalf was Kurapika, who introduced himself to me after I was overheard by the group of 3 that consisted of Kurapika, gone, and the white-haired assassin that gets his Nen ability ripped off in every fanfic that has an MC with lightning powers, Killua. From there a short conversation began between me and Kurapika, making small talk as we continued to move forward in the dimly lit tunnel. In the background, I heard Gon and Killua's excited chattering after Gon uses his fishing rod to fetch Leorio's suitcase he dropped earlier. Huh, that's a pretty neat trick. After that interaction, our group of 5 after we rejoined Leorio shortly rounded the corner of the tunnel and were met with a large winding staircase upwards. Having reached the stairs, our examiner gave notice that he was going to quicken his pace. What was his name? Sots something? Oh well, but isn't the staircase the area where the main cast speaks about their character motivations? What the hell am I supposed to say? Be entertainment? Become the Pirate King or Hokage? Sigh, shaking my head at the thought. I further accelerated before hitting the winding staircase. Hey! Leorio, Kurapika, and Magenta-san. I and Killua are going up ahead. Want to come with us? Asked Gon as he slowed down a bit, moving from the front of our group to the rear where we were located. Nah, go on ahead, I'll stay with Leorio, though I cannot speak for Magenta-san, Kurapika curtly replies as Leorio is currently in no condition to answer, panting like a dog with his shirts tied around his waist, trying his damn best to get up the stairs. Looking over at me, Kurapika gives me a questioning look from across the stairs as Leorio is between us. You know you can remove the sands and stuff. I'm not really into formalities, a real pain, you know? Anyways, you two can go on ahead, I suppose. I lazily respond as the 2 boys give their goodbyes as they race to the front of the pack. Soon after they left, Kurapika begins to ask about Leorio's motivations, though before he started they both tried to convince me why their motivations for becoming a hunter were superior. It was truly comical hearing them go back and forth at each other, trying to poke holes in each other's arguments or aspirations, which eventually led them to ask me why I was here. My reasons for being here? Maybe dumb luck? I didn't intend to originally even come here in the first place. But moving forward, I guess I would want to see new sights, meet new people, nothing grand, I suppose. However, I decided to pivot and move in a new direction in life when I got here, you know? I wasted a good portion of my life lazing around and not doing anything too memorable. That's why I'm going to try living life to the fullest from now on. It's nothing tragic or all that exciting compared to you guys, but that's essentially why I am taking this test, I declared in a serious tone, in contrast to my previous boring demeanor, seemingly surprising both Leorio and Kurapika. I mean, it's sorta true. I didn't spend my previous life all that well looking back on it. I mean, death came so abruptly, and I refused to die again living a useless life. Meanwhile, silence engulfed the area around us as all 3 of our faces sharpened with determination to reach the top of the staircase. Continuing to pass fallen contestants who were sprawled out across the stairs, we finally saw the warm light of the sun, which was quite vivid compared to the dull artificial lamps that previously illuminated the tunnel. After a mad dash to the top, we were greeted with a thick haze of fog, and shortly after our arrival the loud thud as the door back to the tunnel closed. So this is the Swindler's Swamp, huh? Chapter 5. Fuck. Oh god, fuck. Over here. This way, everyone. Across the marsh, many shouts filled with desperation and anguish could be heard from all around as the number of contestants began to dwindle during the trek in the fog. The already winded examinees found themselves constantly in danger due to the various fauna and wildlife that inhabited the marsh. Magenta POV. You know, my appreciation for the outdoors has started to decline. I swear if I get out of here alive I'll come back here and torch the whole damn place. Thankfully I'm with Leorio and Kurapika. If I remember the hunter exam arc correctly, Gon ends up fighting Hisoka for a short while, though I don't really remember the circumstances leading to the fight. Currently we are trying to catch up with the main pack as we got separated from them, yet it seems the small group we're in has been further led astray. POV change. Thunk thunk thunk, the sound of flesh being impacted and cleaved through resounds in the misty surroundings, further followed by the thud of multiple bodies hitting the muddy ground. On further inspection, It seems their former contestants have been impaled by numerous playing cards. "You bastard! What do you think you're doing?" shouted Leorio at the shadowy silhouette who was slowly drawing nearer. The only response was a near laugh accompanying the riffling of a deck of cards as a certain red-haired magician begins to close in on the surviving members of the group. "Coo. I'm playing examiner. You see, I was planning on behaving myself until at least the second exam. But the first exam is boring me. So I figured I'd help with the selection process," announced contestant number 44, Hisaka, who was gleefully playing with a deck of cards in his hands with a smile on his face. It was almost as if he didn't see the numerous people surrounding him with their weapons drawn. With such a bold declaration, the nearby contestants had a variety of reactions, from anger to discomfort and anxiety. Suddenly the tension that was at an all-time high finally snapped. In a rage, many contestants wished to eliminate Hisaka due to his conduct during the exams. Only you four left, heart emoji. Yet, even with superior numbers, all but 5 of the initial 15 contestants were alive. Having slain the rest using a 4 of hearts playing card, Hisaka gave what could only be described as a sadistic smile to the remaining survivors. Of course, these 4 are Kurapika, Leorio, Magenta, and an unnamed contestant. "Look, even if we attack together we don't stand a chance." Before the unnamed contestant could even finish his monologue, our protagonist broke one of the unspoken rules of all anime and manga. "Don't need your speech, Dave, anyways run in separate directions on the count of 3. Quickly interrupted Magenta as he readied the double-action revolver he pulled from his coat. POV change. While a gun most likely won't do anything to a competent nen master with fighting experience, I might as well use it. After all, it was one of the few things I had on my person when I transmigrated besides ID, money, and spare ammunition. "My name isn't even Dave, you bastard," replied the mob contestant in anger after being interrupted by me. "Regardless, we need to get out of here sooner than later, therefore." 3. I shout as I immediately turn 180 degrees as I bolt out of there. Not unlike a certain family of noble descent from Britain, I ran like hell. That was until I looked back and saw Leorio running back towards Hisaka with a log in his hands. "You dumbass. What are you doing? Run away. Fuck, how did I forget that this happened? I guess I liked the Chimera Ant arc and Election arc too much and never went back and rewatched the first few arcs. I'm not going to sit around and be toyed with." As he quickly shortens the distance between himself and the clown, raising the large limb of a tree as a weapon. "That's a good face," cheekily replies Hisaka as he cuts Leorio's makeshift club in half. Afterward, he quickly circled around Leorio and raised his hand as he was about to finish off Leorio when all of a sudden, smack! A sharp blow to the side of his face knocks Hisaka back, distracting him, giving Leorio an opportunity to step back as Hisaka looks at the newcomer to the scene. Gon? Looking at the cause of the strike, we all saw Gon, who used his fishing rod like a whip to prevent Hisaka from killing Leorio, who after striking the pedo clown just stood there. "Man, I don't even have experience in fighting, but even I know to never give your opponent time to recuperate. Oh well, it's an anime world, maybe I can do the popped out eyeball thing like in One Piece." While my thoughts were drifting in a rather odd direction in such a dangerous situation, Hisaka could not be paying any more attention. "Not bad, little boy. A fishing rod? What an interesting weapon. Can I see it?" asked Hisaka, having focused solely on Gon as he approached the small boy. It seemed the clown lost sight of all else as he was even ignoring Leorio. He, who had snuck behind him and was about to bludgeon the clown with yet another stick he found on the ground after the first was sliced to bits. "Let me get a good hit on you, bastard," he bellowed, having removed any possible advantage he may have had via a surprise attack. Yet in response, Hisaka stopped moving and solemnly replied, "Sure you can too." "Huh? Thanks," Leorio confusedly replied during the latter half of the downward swing of his weapon. Bam! Yet all that awaited the aspiring doctor was a clean uppercut to the cheek, sending him flying. Was that a Street Fighter or DBZ reference? Also good to note was that was the first anime welt I saw. Seriously, that thing looks like a tumor. Wait, why the hell am I sitting here on the side watching the fight? Damn, the anime rules of reality have made me mentally retarded. Chapter 6. Ho? Did you come here to help your friend? My, aren't you a good boy? But no need to worry, I didn't kill him after all. Witness to quite the odd scene, Magenta could see HxH the magician petting Gon like some sort of dog. Right after putting him in a chokehold. Yet, after staring into the boy's bright brown eyes, he abruptly stood up and took out a remote handheld radio from his back pocket. Looking at its screen for a few moments, the magician looked down at the boy and happily told him that both he and Leorio had passed his mock exam. Static, HxH. You should come back now. Static, I think we are about to reach the second exam site. And with a distorted voice exiting the radio, HxH stood where he was for a moment to deliberate his next course of action. Eventually turning around, he picked up the unconscious body of Leorio and began to walk back into the mist. Though you other two have not seemed to show any qualities that I'm looking for yet, so you will have to make it on your own. Looking back on the trio surrounded by numerous corpses strewn on the ground, HxH gave an eerie smile, having delivered his message, and continued to walk into the fog. Magenta P.F. Damn, he even killed Dave. I loudly exclaimed, looking at the body of our fallen comrade. It was truly a terrifying sight to see those you care about fall in battle. Who is Dave? Asked Gon in confusion, having arrived on the scene during the midst of the skirmish. Good question. Anyways, how are we supposed to get out of here? Having gotten over the deluge of negative emotions that plagued me for an instant, I put my hands over my brow as if using a pair of binoculars. Unfortunately, my quick solution has done nothing to mitigate the lack of visibility in our surroundings. Is there something wrong? I ask, already expecting how they will both respond to the deflection of those contestants' deaths. I mean, the kid is really innocent, so I should have probably not said that. I mean, even Kurapika seems slightly uncomfortable. Oh well. It's not that crazy for people to die in this world, life is cheap and all that. They should have considered that when they were warned to opt out for the hunter exam. Not knowing how to further navigate the conversation, Kurapika begins to speak, though whatever he was going to say died out before he could get anything out of his mouth. What we need to focus on is getting to the second exam site. If we just stay here, there is a good chance we will get killed. Do remember that all of these bodies are going to attract a lot of predators. That said, does anyone have any skills that could contribute towards getting us there? I am pretty useless here, as all I'm good for is talking and shooting things. Trying to steer the conversation towards something productive, I quickly interject, and the ass is the current situation we have found ourselves in. Oh. Can just follow Leorio's scent. His cologne has a distinct scent. I'm pretty sure I could lead us to the exam area, happily spoke Gon, having forgotten the awkward mood from before. Whisper, hey Kurapika, are you sure Gon isn't some sort of mutt? I loudly whisper towards the lone Uchiha Hemkurta clan survivor, with my hand blocking my mouth while I lean towards him. What? In bewilderment, Kurapika looks at me confusedly as if I grew a second head. I mean, the bill fits, right? Extremely loyal with people, excitable and energetic, no sense of danger. You even saw that clown pet him on the head like one. Now he has some sort of sharp sense of smell. What else is missing? I ask with a teasing smile on my face. I mean, you're right. Wait, aren't you the one who said we need to focus on our situation? He yelled at me in outrage, seemingly losing control of his emotions for a small moment. Ma, no need to be so serious. Anyways, Gon, go ahead and lead the way, we will make sure to follow you. Grumble, you're being a bully, guys. I'm not some sort of dog, right? Having looked over to the person they were previously talking about, both Magenta and Kurapika could see Gon hunched over in what could only be described as despair. Bonk, common boy. Lead the way, Inu-kun. Giving a quick tap on Gon's head, I wake him out of his daze while simultaneously teasing him further. Ow. Don't you dare call me that. And make sure to keep up. Beginning to move out, Gon starts to walk away from their previous location, with the other two following quickly behind him. You know, Magenta, You sure have a talent for getting on people's nerves easily. Begrudgingly chided Kurapika as they continued on their trek towards the exam site. Hey! I read in a book that light humor is a great way to make friends or deepen relationships with friends. I righteously defend myself. After all, me being the extremely sociable person, I have to know this much. You had read a book on how to make friends? Kurapika asked me with a deadpan look, even Gon, whose face I could not see, seemed to cringe at my words. In my defense, I don't get out that much. Not like I needed the book. I have friends. Wait, now that I think about, I am in a new world, so my old friends don't count, do they? Shit, I'm a total loner right now. Just please do not ask who they are. I think my soul will collapse if I have to say something like, well, I have you guys, right? Ah, the pain. Oh yeah, what friends? Kurapika sarcastically retorts, almost sensing my weakness. What friends? Hey, you two. I think the fog is clearing up ahead. It seems we're close, as Leorio's scent is getting closer, and with Gon's announcement, my prayers had been answered. Having dodged the question, I gave a small sigh of relief and quickened my pace to distance myself from Kurapika, who was giving me an intense stare. I'm going to have to give him some sort of reward. Tell him who his father is? Yeah, not interested in doing so. Maybe a dog bone? And, while I have been updating every day so far, that won't be the case soon. I just have a lot of free time today, so I made a chapter. I will try to stockpile chapters in my free time, but besides that, I will mainly write on weekends. So here comes the question, are you guys interested in me dropping as I write, 2 to 3 on weekends, or spacing out drops through the week? Chapter 7. I thought the second exam took place at some sort of outdoor pavilion with cooking stations everywhere. So why is there a giant warehouse here? Well, it looks like everyone is standing around the building and not in it, so my only guess is that the building will open up after the deadline ends. Walking over to the small little group of acquaintances I made so far during the test, we began to talk to pass the time. What do you reckon the next test will be like? The first phase was geared to eliminate contestants based on physical requirements, so the next phase could be something skill-based. Reasoned Kurapika, with whom I had to agree. If this second phase was anything like the one in the anime, then it would remove a smaller number of contestants based on some sort of skill-based test. It probably is related to some sort of skill or craft that we either need to already have or pick up on the fly. Though one thing to note is that the test may be in the form of a 2-phase test. I reply to his question as we all deliberate on the next phase of the exam, with exception of Leorio, whose passed-out body is leaning against the trunk of a tree. 2-phase test? Asked surprisingly Killua, of all people. Yeah, did you not notice? The first exam started with a test of physical fitness, starting slow and speeding up the whole time. Then the test heightened the difficulty further by throwing in the trek up the stairs. That would be considered the first part of exam 1. The second would be the Swindler's Marsh, where the overall speed was lowered as the difficulty lowered a bit in regards to physical fitness but threw in a new variable. I conjecture, using both my own experience and foreknowledge from the anime, that was beginning to look shaky. You mean the survival aspect where we had to deal with the wildlife residing in the marsh? Quickly answered Killua in realization. Bingo. So I would not be surprised if we had to do something relatively easy to start with, so people can adapt to the situation, then have a level of progression in the difficulty where we make it or break it. After our short discussion about the exam, we began to trail off into other topics as we waited for the next exam to begin. Though wait long we did not, as after a short 20 minutes the large doors to the warehouse swung open. Soon after, contestants began to trickle into the warehouse. Oh, it's the fat guy and chick with the weird hair. So is this the same exam as in the anime? Now that I think about it, could be some sort of difference from the manga, as I never really read it before. Thinking about it, I'm probably going to fail if they don't do the spider eagle nest thing. Yo. Welcome to the second exam. I am Menki and this is Buero. We are both gourmet hunters. So for that reason, the second exam will be cooking. Cook up a dish that can satisfy us two gourmet hunters. Interrupting my thought train was a young woman with what could be described as an odd hairstyle paired with an equally odd choice of clothes. Behind her sat a giant of a man with features reminiscent of a pig. It seemed these were to be the new examiners for the hunter exam. "Cooking," was the general response of the remaining 150 contestants, not having to expect to be made to cook as part of the well-revered hunter exam. "First you must cook the dish that I designate," was the only response the confused or disappointed contestants were given from Buara. "And only the ones who pass that will be allowed to cook the dish I designate. So basically, only by getting us both to say that your respective dishes are delicious will you pass this second exam." As Mankey finished off Buara's thought, the exam site returned to silence before once again being filled with noise due to the various responses of the contestants. "Shit, I never cooked before," was Leorio's reaction to the whole situation. "I never would have imagined cooking would have been what we were doing for an exam. Though I am curious as to what kind of dishes we are supposed to prepare." Meanwhile, Kurapika's reaction to the whole ordeal was much more level-headed, assessing the future actions he may need to take. Though in the group was a collective trio who were exceedingly nervous due to them most likely never cooking a meal in their lives. Much ashamed they were, having never really worked inside of a kitchen due to various reasons. "Andy Mito used to cook all the meals for us now that I think about it." Gone. Cooking was always the butler's job back at the mansion. Killua. The advent of the microwave has turned cooking into a vestigial skill, hasn't it? Magenta. My menu is whole roasted pig. It's my favorite dish. As long as the pig resides in this forest, any variety of swine will do. Now, let the second phase of the exam begin. Being pulled out of their reverie by the announcement, the group of five started shuffling towards the exit alongside the rest of the contestants in a rush to procure ingredients. POV change. Any type of pig will do. How cruel of you to say that to them, Buara. If I am correct, there is only one type of pig here in the Bisca forests, right? Teasingly asked Mankey to her fellow gourmet hunter. The world's most ferocious pig, the great stamp with its large and deceptively hard nose. It crushes all of its enemies in an instant. If contestants can't run away quickly enough, they'll become the pig's food instead. Having said his piece, a sadistic smile spread across Buara's face as they waited for the contestants to return to the exam hall. So after both getting a few comments from readers but also a reflection on the past chapter, I have to agree that it really wasn't up to scratch. I think I forced too much comedy into chapter 4 when it really did not need it. I think the banter would have been better suited for the start of this chapter during the recess between exams. Having recently looked at the manga for a quick refresher, I even noticed they put similar jokes in said spots. This is most likely to me not previously having too much of a vision of how the story will develop, leading me to force ideas where they don't belong or elements that just should not exist. To alleviate this issue, I have started to write up a general storyboard for this fic. On another note, while no one said anything, I know a lot of people dislike stories that are just canon with a MC tacked on to the side. This will not happen, as the MC will diverge from the main cast after the exams. They will probably meet back up at the York New auction, and following that the arcs shown in the anime and manga will occur but will be different and my own spin on them. Chapter 8. Considering this is the hunter exam, there has to be something special about these pigs, no? I mean, just look at the creature from the marsh. What if these pigs are equipped with high-power lasers or autocannons? After having said that, I internally cringed. I just wanted to alert them that the pigs could be dangerous without spelling out that they were those weird tanky ramming pigs from the anime. While I agree that the pig we are going to hunt for may be special, I don't think we will be finding any laser pigs in the forest. There it is. The save. From Kurapika, though it seems like the rest have seemed to pick up on the hint regarding the test. I do not know much about species of pigs, as there were not any on Whale Island. Regardless, Magenta-san, you have quite the vivid imagination, don't you? Was Gon's contribution to the topic as we advanced further into the forest. PFF, more like a delusional old man, was all Killua had to say about the topic. Though he probably has nothing to worry about in all of these exams. Gon was brutally honest and Killua honestly brutal. I am the oldest one here, all things considered. Cough yeah. As if there would be laser pigs. You would have to be an idiot to believe that. Aren't you just a comedian, Magenta? Ha ha ha. And finally was Leorio, who was nervously looking away while laughing, trying to cover up the fact he believed me. Huh? Having bumped into the back of Kurapika, I looked to see what the holdup was, only to see a small drove of pigs. Had to look up what a group of pigs was called, that were gargantuan in size compared to those of my past life. Man, the anime did not do these things justice, or really any of the wildlife in this world so far. The pigs were bulbous in general silhouette, but the thick hairs on their body seemed quite rigid and more akin to spines, and the thick hardened hide that their oddly shaped noses were made of seemed to be extremely tough from just a glance. Though it seemed they noticed us too, as they stopped grazing and seemed to give us an inspecting gaze. Most wild pigs are quite territorial, was the sound that broke the silence that ensued alongside the stare down between the many contestants and the pigs. Scree. And with that, the pigs began to accelerate their large bodies as they charged toward various examinees. Around the forest were similar situations happening, though other contestants were not lucky enough to escape being trampled by the pigs. Regardless of what was thrown at the pigs, their thick hide would absorb all damage inflicted upon them. Even those armed with firearms seemed to find them completely ineffective. Apparently, they never received the notice that they were living in an anime and that guns are useless. Seeing as anything we can throw at that thing seems useless against them, I will once again be asking you to run. Or at least until we can find an exploitable weakness like the inside of the mouth or eyes. Stay on your feet and make sure you can get away. Following my warning, everyone around us seemed to play a game of cat and mouse with the pigs, though we were the mice in this situation. I think I may know where to hit this thing. So give me an opening to shoot the thing from an angle, having remembered that these things would collapse the instant their foreheads received blunt trauma, so all I had to do was shoot its forehead. Though I wasn't some sort of dead-eye sharpshooter, the shooting skills I received upon transmigration should be enough to make the shot. It's just I could not make it previously, as their odd-shaped snouts created a natural shield for their weak spots when directly facing their enemy. "Got you," was the response I got from the rest of the group as they played the role of bait whilst I separated from them. Inhale. Getting into a comfortable firing position, I began to track the small group of 6 pigs chasing my buddies. Aiming just ahead of where they were going to be, I readied my finger by moving it onto the trigger from the trigger guard. Bang! Having taken the first shot, the first pig fell to the ground with a sizable dust cloud being made with the impact of its massive body hitting the ground. Following the first shot, I began to fire on the small group. While I would kill one more pig than we needed, I'd rather not let it chase them any longer and allow another contestant to have the corpse. Bang 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 bang, and within a few moments the pigs were dead on the ground. There was no blood, as it seems the bullets still could not pierce their hides, but the impact of the hit got to their much softer brain, causing them to die. 1. Well, now we need to get these things to the exam hall. Let's get a move on then, I shouted towards my now stunned friends. Is something wrong? I asked in confusion, looking at Theme's stare at me. You are actually useful for something? Speaking for the group was Leorio, who seemed shocked at the display of me defeating the pigs. The hell is that supposed to mean, 4 eyes? I shouted back in outrage. Well, you figured out their weak spots, which we couldn't do in our time spent running from all of them. That and your admittedly decent use of a firearm was quite the surprise. I just thought you were some nobody that got here due to luck alone like Leorio, spoke Killua, who looked at me in slight surprise as if he was proven wrong in something. What the hell did you call me, you little shit? Almost as if on the same wavelength, Leorio and I yelled at Killua as we began to run faster after the silver-haired boy, seemingly ignoring the weight of the large pigs on our backs as we all ran back to the exam hall. Chapter 9. Delicious. Oh, this one as well. Very nice. Inside the exam hall for the second phase of the hunter exam, there was only silence except for the sounds of someone scarfing down food. The sound of eating was only interrupted by words of gratitude, only to return to the noisy sound of eating. Many contestants were stunned by how quickly Buara was gorging himself on the wild pigs that were already many times their size. However, after eating the last pig presented by an examinee, Buara let out a sigh of satisfaction. Burp. Ah, what a great meal, everyone. I am finally full. After saying so, he closed his eyes and leaned back on the comically large pile of pig skeletons, using it as a makeshift backrest. Bong. Seeing that her fellow examiner was done, Menki struck the gong to her left side. Finished. 58 whole roasted pigs completed and delivered. Having delivered the announcement, Menki stepped off the stage as she began prepping the next phase. During this time the examinees began to converse. POV change. It seems like fewer people passed the first part of the exam. I suppose it was because I didn't monologue about its weakness out loud, so nearly everyone could pass? Was all I could really piece together. Seriously, what is it with anime protagonists announcing the solutions to problems so mob characters could survive longer? Just as expected, hunters are truly capable people, aren't they? Snapping out of my reverie, I looked down at Gon, who seemed weirdly impressed with Buara's feat of eating. Yeah, though I don't think I want to be like that, was all Killua could say in response to Gon's overall enthusiasm. The human body cannot even physically eat that much. I should know. I am studying to become a fucking doctor. On the other hand, Leorio was going through the 5 stages of grief for whatever reason. Just don't think about it, was the universal fix-all counseling coming from Kurapika. So the clown that has interesting sexual preferences who killed an entire group of armed men with a playing card wasn't that crazy? However, some guy eating a lot of food is? The man's like 10 feet tall, seems realistic enough, was all I could contribute to the topic. I mean, HxH, was the joint response of the group, with the exception of Killua, who seemed indifferent to the situation. Oh? It looks like the examiner is stepping back up on stage, said another contestant who was nearby our group. After hearing him, we all looked to the stage to see Menki walk towards the center of the stage. Bong. Striking the gong again, Menki got everyone's attention. What's with her and that gong? It's like the 5th time hitting it within a span of 10 minutes. I complained in my mind with a slight frown on my face. I want everyone to know that I am not like Buara. I'm going to be a little harder to please. I'm going to judge strictly as well. Therefore, for the second half of the second exam, my menu item will be sushi. She excitedly exclaimed, looking forward to the creative dishes that will be created by the examinees. On the other hand, said contestants were in a state of silent confusion. Having never heard of the dish, they had no idea what it was they were supposed to be doing. You all seem quite perplexed? Well, it's not all that surprising. It's a traditional dish of the formerly isolationist island country of Japan. Well, I might as well give everyone a hint to level the playing field. First, look to your prepared cooking stations. The examiner smugly informed everyone. All necessary ingredients and utensils have been prepared for you alongside the main ingredient, sushi rice, has been placed at all your workstations. As for the biggest hint, I will only be accepting nigiri sushi, the kind made by pressing the rice with your hand. With that, she began to walk back towards her seat beside Buara, though before she left she turned around and addressed the crowd. All right, begin. The exam will end when I am full. Until then, you can make as many dishes as you want. Having said everything she needed, Menki sat down in her chair and crossed one leg over the other as she began to inspect the movements of the examinees. Slight time skip. So we need to source some sort of fish. Does anyone know how to navigate towards that lake we saw during the hunt for pigs? After being assigned sushi as our dish, our group went out of the exam hall back towards the forest to procure ingredients. I only know basic orienteering skills. And I don't have a compass or a map of the area. I think this is more of Gon's area? I mean, you have been carrying that fishing rod around the whole time, no? I suggested. I can smell the scent of the lake blowing in the wind most likely. After saying so, Gon stood still and closed his eyes to sniff out the location. And after a moment pointed a bit to our left. After doing so, he began to move towards the presumed location of the lake. Huh, the nose of yours sure is convenient, no? Well, now we need to get our fish. Since we all collectively know nothing about cooking, let's just grab any old fish and try to make something passable? I said, unsure of what to do. I never liked seafood in my past life, so I really only know what sushi looked like and not went into it. Even my limited cooking skills don't encompass seafood, so we really have to hope that there will be a redo on the second exam. I guess. Gon, can you fish them out for us? Speed is of great importance. Unlike the other examiner, I am afraid Mankey-san may get full quickly. That is why we should try to get back to cook as soon as possible, suggested Kurapika, who was also concerned about his lack of knowledge concerning the dish. Yeah, I can hook a few fishes for us. How many do we want? Replied Gon as he began to take off his backpack and prepare his fishing equipment. Maybe we should try to pick any wild ingredients around here while Gon fishes? Might as well try something to make our dishes stand out? I proposed, seeing as we were all sitting around doing nothing while Gon did everything. Sure, sounds good to me, was Leorio's response to the idea. Following that, the four of us rooted around the nearby greenery looking for anything usable for a good while. Chapter 10. It's okay, you got this. Your dumbass even watched Food Wars for the plot and not the softcore erotica. Not to mention all the slice-of-life animes about restaurants I have watched definitely translate to cooking skills. Yeah, I am fucked, aren't I? I mean, I know how to grill some foods, but that's all. As I started to sweat while looking at my cooking station, I looked around to see what others were doing. Leorio just made a ball of rice and a few different vegetables before stabbing it full of different assorted fish. Yeah, he will not be passing with that, huh? Continuing to circle around, my eyes landed on Kurapika's cooking station. It looks like he is observing the dishes of other contestants like me while also paying attention to rejected contestants. I wasn't listening before, but it seems Menki is giving at least some feedback on rejected dishes. Ha! That guy just turned in a rice ball. How did he manage to confuse it? Continuing to look at what my friends were doing, I saw both Gon and Killua doing essentially the same as Leorio. Looks like Killua left out any vegetables. I guess he is a picky eater? And Gon looks the most promising of the group so far. Well, I guess it's time to get started. I spoke my thoughts aloud as I began my cooking process. I first started by washing my hands at the sink and then preparing my workstation. I know it was not the best thing to cross-contaminate with the meat, so I made sure to separate everything on my work surface. Preparing the fish was going to be difficult as I never really had experience doing it. All I knew was that you used that one flexible knife to fillet the fish. After I struggled to get the meat off of the fish I ended up with 3 cuts of meat from 2 different fishes. I started with 3 fish as Gon ended up taking 15 medium to small fish out of the lake. The first I completely butchered. 1. I would say I am sorry for butchering that fish, but after a late-night blind Subnautica playthrough via recommendation of a friend I despise all aquatic life, finally succeeding halfway through the second fish, I ended up with said 3 cuts of fish meat. Washing my hands yet again, I move over to the prepared container of rice. Opening the wooden lid and taking out a handful of its contents, I began to form the sticky rice into a small bed for the following ingredients to lay on. 5. If memory serves right, the spices or seasoning goes in between the rice and meat. Though I don't know much about plants and spices in this world besides the common ones that were in my old world. I guess the sky will do. I spoke in my mind as I reached for an oddly colored plant I collected in our earlier forest visit. Laying a few leaves onto the rice, I then moved to place my nicest looking cut of meat on top. Stepping back to look at my handiwork, I saw something that resembled sushi from my past life. Huh, that actually wasn't that bad. Maybe I should try to cook more? I once again voiced my thoughts. Looking around, I saw all my friends grouped together with dejected looks on their faces. The same as Leorio. Was my cooking that bad? Kurapika groaned in great anguish. And why the hell is that such a bad thing? Was all Leorio could exclaim in response to Kurapika. Did you guys all fail to make sushi? I thought at least 1 or 2 of you guys could do it, no? I say with a small smirk on my face. Ho? And what are you going to do, old man? I doubt you will be able to make anything edible, Killua countered, being annoyed that his fun outing away from home wasn't going well. Well, I actually made something that looks like sushi, so I don't know, pass. TCH. And that quickly shut Killua up. Well, off I go, wish me luck guys, I said before picking up my dish, which had a lid over it for the dramatic reveal. As I approached Menki, she had a bored and slightly angry look on her face. I assume the dishes before have not been up to her standards. Oh well, here goes. I'm here to present my dish, as I set down my plate and took off the lid to show my dish to Menki. Huh, something that at least looks like sushi, she said as she took her chopsticks and prodded and looked at my dish. Though after further scrutinizing my dish, a frown formed on her face. Fuck. I am out, aren't I? Probably should not have talked so much shit before leaving, I thought as my eyes were covered in shadow in a rather bizarre manner. But Menki quietly spoke, even I didn't hear her and I'm directly in front of her. Did you say something? I didn't hear you. I said, are you stupid? I was finally looking forward to eating something that resembled sushi and you go and ruin it by putting on kukanyu snakeroot, a commonly known poisonous plant in the area, you dumbass. Consider yourself disqualified, she shouted in outrage as she mercilessly tore into me as she picked apart my dish in front of the rest of the contestants. In my defense, I'm not local to this area, I weakly replied in shame. I mean, how the hell was I supposed to know that that plant was poisonous? I mean, yeah, I probably should have run them by our resident aspiring doctor or assassin. Okay, yeah, it's my fault. Snicker. Even with my back facing the crowd, I already knew who it was who was laughing at me. As I turned around to make the walk of shame back to my cooking station, I was met with the smug faces of Killua and Leorio, who were trying their hardest not to laugh at me. Comment. Hey Megan, Leorio began to speak. Go fuck yourself, shitty four eyes. I tersely cut him off as I crossed my arms and looked in the opposite direction of them. Chapter 11. How about this, we continue with the second exam. However, we will choose a new test in which you first demonstrate it personally before the examinees attempt it. How about is Menki-kun? In a sing-song voice, the chairman of the Hunter Association, Isaac Netero, who previously just landed on the exam site after jumping off an in-flight blimp to mediate with Menki on behalf of the contestants. This will make it easier for examinees to accept the results of the exam as well, he further explained as he turned around to take a closer look at this year's batch of aspiring hunters. I see. I suppose I have been unfair to all the examinees, except that bastard who tried to poison me as for a test for them to complete with a decent difficulty. She trailed off as she looked towards the skyline and thought. Following her line of sight, you could see a large mountain with a crevasse bisecting it into two parts. After a moment her eyes shined in realization as she looked back towards the chairman, who was busy looking at a different pair of twin peaks, and announced her intentions for the makeup exam. The second test shall be preparing a particular variant of boiled egg. Chairman, would you please allow the use of the blimp to take us to the top of Split Mountain? She announced with a slightly mischievous grin. Ho? I see what you are doing. Yes, that should be fine. Everyone make sure to get on board the ship before it takes off. After he finished speaking, he turned around to enter the airship that had landed during the course of the interaction between himself and Menki. Of change. I have never been on one of these airships before, I said as we all walked through the large doors of the flight craft. Really, that's weird. Didn't you say you were not local to this continent, so how the hell did you get here? Surprisingly, Leorio of all people questioned. How to explain this? Random bullshit go. Oh boy, here it was. The struggle almost all transmigrated MCs go through, explaining how they know/don't know shit. Unless you are some sort of mass-murdering Chinese office worker, it could be very hard to fabricate a string of lies and a fake past. While the stress was slowly rising, I began to sweat looking at Leorio. I mean, who would have guessed it would be him of all people to bring it up? Damn. Boats. Seriously, did you not earlier say you got here on a ship? Yeah. I got overworked for nothing. I am a believer in Kiss and am therefore a mediocre liar. Oh yeah. I guess there are continental travels via ship. though there's no need to be so scared. I saw you sweating buckets over there, you know? These airships are a pretty stable ride, and this one seems to be top of the line, as expected of the Hunter Association, Leorio assured me as he looked at the inner furnishings of the airship as we were further ushered inside into the passenger area. Following this was the short flight over towards Split Mountain. Time skip. This crevasse is the nesting ground for spider eagles who hang their eggs inside a web sack from the webs strewn across the walls. Your task will be to grab an egg and navigate back to the top and cook the egg you retrieved. Now, make sure to watch as I will demonstrate, Menki said as she slipped off her boots and strode towards the edge of the sheer drop. Here goes, she shouted as she dived down into the cavern. As she neared one of the sacks, she grabbed onto one of the nearby supporting web strands to break her fall. After her momentum was eventually dissipated by the elastic web, she then flipped her body and strung her legs around the web to make her hang upside down. Using her now free hands, she grabbed one of the eggs and pulled it out of the sticky web. Having secured the egg, she began to climb back up the walls to greet the examinees. Here. All you have to do is boil this egg, pretty easy, no? She said as began to walk away towards the airship. Though said examinees seemed a bit reluctant to attempt the task, thinking it was too dangerous. Ah, that's a relief. This is both easier and more enjoyable than the stupid cooking challenge, Killua said in excitement. Yeah. I was waiting for something like this, Gon said as the two began to move towards the edge of the canyon. Following the two followed the rest of them as they decided to make the jump for the eggs. Here we go, they shouted as they fell down. Wait, my hat fell off. That's an integral part of my character design. Those who decided to stay back from plunging into the canyon heard the wailing echoes of Magenta as his hat was lost to the force of gravity. Scene change. To you remaining 42 contestants, I would like to formally reintroduce myself. I am Netero and my responsibility is overseeing the trials. As a member of the organization committee, I correspond with test examiners to make sure everything is going well. Normally we would not meet each other until the final part of the exam, but due to unforeseen circumstances I have arrived earlier than expected. Inside the bridge of the airship, Netero introduced himself to all remaining examinees who had made the dive into Split Mountain and got out alive. The reason you're currently here is that I wish to inform you that the next phase of the exam will be starting tomorrow at 8 in the morning. Feel free to do as you wish until then, that is all. As he finished talking, the examinees began to filter out to relax for the evening. Chapter 12. Hey! I and Killua are going up to the kitchens, want to come with us? Walking into one of the cabins, Gon asked us, while we were beginning to retire for the night. I should be fine, I'd rather get some rest. You can go without me, I replied. After everything I went through today, I was tired both mentally and physically. There was little chance anyone was going to prevent me from sleeping right now, consequences be damned. Yawn, I'm beat, I'll eat in the morning, Leorio spoke out as he immediately passed out on his makeshift pile of blankets and pillows. I will also be turning in for the night, no need to worry about us, was Kurapika's polite response as he straightened out his belongings and squaring out his blanket to sleep on. Okay. We will be off then, good night. Gon quickly said as he ran back out the door to presumably meet up with Killua. With everything taken care of, I closed my eyes and rested my head on my pillow. I'm glad I did not go with Gon. Dealing with Netero would be a pain in the ass. If I had to deal with something annoying like that, I would be quite irksome. And almost as if to spite me, something had to happen. Ho? Aren't you the newbies? Peeking into our room was Tunpa, who had an innocent smile on his face as he further entered our room. Ah, it's Tunpa. What are you doing here? Questioned Kurapika upon the arrival of the short-statured man. Yes, I wanted to warn you not to sleep too soundly. Even though they said the next exam starts at 8, the examiners could very well have us get off the airship earlier and disqualify anyone still on the ship. Just some advice for you guys. Tunpa advised, all the while with a sickly sweet smile on his face. Can you fuck off? I replied in a monotone voice. Huh? Was the stunned reply of both Tunpa and Kurapika. Aren't you the motherfucker who tried to give everyone the juice cans that Killua said were laced with poison earlier? I asked, full well knowing the answer already. Well stunned, Tunpa didn't really know what to say as he tried to recollect himself. Didn't you also pay off the brothers to brutalize that rich snob kid in the tunnel for your own amusement? I further questioned just to shut him up. I wasn't in the mood to deal with anything else tonight. You saw that? Wait, I mean mistakenly, said Tunpa in shock. Yes I did. This is probably some half-baked ploy to tire ourselves out, and I'm really not in the mood to deal with you right now. Good night. I mean, I was in a terrible mood already. I lost my hat in Split Mountain. Meaning I just wanted to be done with the day. Stunned into silence, Kurapika and Tunpa looked first at me, then turned to each other and made eye contact. Haha. You know, I really need to get going? Yeah. I need to warn everyone else not to sleep in, so well wishes you three. Saying so, Tunpa turned 180 degrees and bolted out of our room. Well, good night, Magenta, awkwardly said Kurapika before turning off the lights and retiring for the night. I affirmed while half asleep. Snore. Meanwhile, Leorio was well off into the land of dreams. Next morning. Get up, come on, get up, Magenta. Half awake, I heard someone calling my name, though I couldn't truly make out who it was. Fuck. I am up. And what time is it? Propped up out of bed in my tired stupor, I turned to the origin of the noise from before to be met with Kurapika alongside a yawning Leorio who seemed finished preparing for the day. After stretching for a bit and standing up, I asked about the current time. It's currently 6:30 in the morning. Let's go down to the cafeteria, they should have breakfast right around now. Informed Kurapika, who seemed to just finished packing his items back into his satchel. Who the hell wakes up at 6:30? Sigh. Walking alongside the other two, we make our way towards the mess hall. Anyways, are you guys prepared for the next phase of the test? The difficulty will only increase from here on. Of course. I'll be fine, because if I succeed I will become rich. Loudly answered Leorio with a smug grin on his face. Well, nothing different with him, huh? I thought in slight amusement. Sigh. It's always money with you, Leorio. And to answer your question, yes, I am ready, or I would not have even participated in this year's exam. Resolutely responded Kurapika as we finally entered the mess hall. By the way, have you two seen Gon and Killua? They were not in the room earlier, questioned Leorio as we got into line for breakfast. They never showed up last night, so they may have been up to something last night. If we don't see them around here, we may have to look around for them though, replied Kurapika as he was served a bowl of oatmeal. Knowing those two, they were surely up to something last night. They will show up eventually, probably last moment anyways considering them, I said as I grabbed a blueberry muffin, the superior breakfast item. Yeah, we have been cutting it close nearly every time. I sure hope that trend doesn't continue though, spoke Leorio while piling on eggs, bacon and hash browns onto his plate. Don't count on it, I retorted as we sat down at a table and began to speak among ourselves. So what do you guys plan on doing after the exam, considering we do pass? Leorio asked as we began eating. There are a lot of private nature sanctuaries and isolated pieces of land only hunters can access. Using both that and the information databases available, I am going out into the wilderness to train, I replied. Having a large amount of spare time during the first phase allowed me to sketch out my ideas for after the exam is done. Train? Like physically? I don't really see the purpose of doing so, but I am going to go to med school and become a doctor hopefully, Leorio said between mouthfuls of hash browns as we continued to eat. As we have already seen many times before in this test, there are people with an insane amount of strength and abilities some would consider unnatural, I reminded Leorio, who gained a thoughtful look on his face afterward. I see. As for me, I plan to become a blacklist hunter and start taking bounties to build reputation, connections, and strength before going for the A-rank bounties of the Phantom Troop, Kurapika earnestly replied, completely ignoring my perfect impersonation of the Senate. Chapter 13. BZZT notice to all passengers, we will be landing soon. Please be ready to disembark within a moment. Resounding from the overhead intercoms, the voice of Beans, Netaro's assistant, informed everyone. Would you look at that? Some sort of pillar. What do you think we are going to do this time? Said Leorio while we looked out the window of the airship. I don't see any features on it and we are landing on the top, so we most likely have to find a way to the bottom without dying? I said aloud in response to his question. Yeah, that makes sense. Though I have no clue how I am going to do that, Leorio replied as the airship finally landed on the tower. Hey everyone. What's up? From behind us came Gon, who seemed to still have signs of exhaustion on his face. Huh, you really did come last minute. Where were you? Kurapika asked as we began to funnel out of the ship alongside the other contestants. I and Killua were playing a game with the chairman. Killua left halfway through though. Oh, and I didn't win either. Anyways, what were you guys talking about? While catching up to his friends, Gon and the others didn't notice that Magenta had disappeared from the platform of the tower. POV change. Motherfucker. As soon as I got on the platform I fall through a trapdoor. Shouting as I lay flat on my back. Getting up I began to take in my surroundings or rather lack of surroundings, it's completely dark. Now if I am correct, this is Trick Tower and the gimmick is puzzles or challenges against residents of the tower with a 3-day time limit. On top of that, the challenges each examinee goes through have a different theme or difficulty. As I thought to myself, I got off the ground and collected myself. After a while, my eyes began to adjust to the light and I realized the room was rather small. And what is that in the corner? Seeing a small silhouette in the corner, I began to walk towards it and bent over to further inspect it. Oh, it's a lantern. By its design it seems to burn oil rather than use an electric bulb. Picking it up I began to fumble with it in the dark until it turned on. It had an electric starter. Oh well, let's see what we have here. Inspecting the walls once again I was met with writing that I could not previously see before. Path of Light and Darkness. For the examinee, you will have to reach your goal by completing multiple light-based puzzles. I read aloud to myself. Well, I have beat the Spirit Temple before an ocarina of time, so this should be easy enough. While I was thinking, a loud click was heard behind me. Turning around I was met with an opening in the stone wall leading into a new room. Well, here goes. Walking into the next room with my lantern I am met with nothing. Though after walking far enough into the room the door behind me shut again, leaving me in the empty room. Inspecting the room further I found nothing interesting, even pressing all the bricks did nothing for me. Time continued to pass as I looked for any sort of clue on how to proceed to the next chamber. Wait, the focus is on light and darkness. The first room was completed by turning on the lamp. Quickly opening the windshield of the lantern I blew out the flame, returning the room back to inky darkness. Shortly afterward a similar loud click sounded as a door to my left opened up into a stairway down. You know, I feel really stupid for not figuring that out earlier. Not like anyone will know, thankfully. Exiting the stairway I enter a slightly larger room than the previous two from before. BZZT, sorry to burst your bubble, but I have been both watching and listening along while you have been fumbling about. An audible buzz rang through the room as a voice of a sickly-sounding man rang out inside the room. Who are you? I nervously said, looking around the room. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Mark Bolin, an inmate here in Trick Tower. You could say I am a subcontracted examiner for this phase of the test. For every hour you spend inside the tower I get 1 year off of my prison sentence, therefore I made this gauntlet of puzzles as your exam. The voice over the speakers explained. Sounds easy enough, I said aloud as I continued to look around the room. However, I am doubting you will make it out of here when you spent 2.5 hours in the first 2 rooms, which were supposed to introduce the mechanics of the puzzles. Anyways, you now have 69.5 hours to get out of the tower, Boland said before turning off the comms and returning the room to silence. I guess I should pick up the pace. I do not see anything of note in the dark around here, so I might as well turn on the lamp. With a satisfying click the lamp lit up in a warm yellow flame as the room was illuminated before me. Oh, there is actually something here this time, I thought as I examined what looks like 5 white-colored bricks and 6 black-colored bricks spread out along the floor and 3 of the 4 walls. On the wall without any bricks was instead a diagram with pictures on it. Going back to further inspect the bricks, I noticed the white bricks could be pressed similar to a button while the black bricks did not budge. If I am correct, I have to use the diagram to decipher what order to press these bricks, and certain bricks can only be pressed based on the light level of the room. I deduced while turning back to the board and began to ponder how to find the correct order. Man, why couldn't it be some easy light reflection using mirrors? Chapter 14. Looking at the diagram on the wall, I began to consider what exactly it is I am supposed to do. Said diagram looks like a series of 4 chessboards arranged in a T-shape with black and white spaces that are designated with a letter and number system. Each board had various pieces in play, with some that had been removed from the game set next to the board, though it only looked like a chessboard due to a few small details. This is certainly not chess. Instead of an 8x8 grid, it's a 4x4 one. Not only that, but some pieces are on spots they would never be able to reach if playing by the rules. However, I don't think I need to pay attention to said pieces if my guess is correct, and the erroneous pieces could be a red herring. Turning around and looking at the construction of the room once again, I began to mentally piece together my next steps of solving the puzzle. If I am correct, these 4x4 grids roughly translate to the 4 surfaces with the special bricks, that in the numbered rows continue where the last grid left off. Where board 1 is 1 to 4, board 2 is 5 to 8, and so forth. The most notable thing though is 11 of the 16 rows only have one piece on their respective rows, meaning the numerical order of rows with only one piece is most likely part of the solution. Noting this down mentally, I began to consider the other details left at my disposal to solve the puzzle. All that is left are the squares said pieces are on, which could denote which area the brick that needs to be pressed resides, the removed pieces, the color of the pieces, and orientation of this map. I believe the solution is the row numerical order and using the chess space to find what quarter of the surface the needed brick is located and the piece color denotes. Well, I don't know. I am pretty sure the color of the brick shows what light setting it needs to be pressed. Unless that can change depending on the order you press things, or the color of the pieces is a useless clue meant to distract me. Deciding to ignore the piece colors for now, I began to memorize the order of bricks I needed to press and where they were located in the room. Following this began the annoying process of turning on and off the lantern as I moved around pressing bricks until BZZT, you were wrong, sir. In perfect English was a taunting notification that played over the speaker, alerting me that I had messed up along the way. Fuck me. Well, don't actually, I'm not into disembodied voices of guys, I said in frustration as I stood up and looked back at the chess diagram, thinking if I messed up somewhere. Getting no response from the intercoms, I delved back into my thoughts. It would probably be the fact that I pressed those bricks at the start of the puzzle, kinda like when you accidentally press a wrong number in before entering your passcode. I don't think it's the chess pieces, as that would contradict the rules it laid down earlier by only letting certain bricks be pressed at certain light levels. Getting back to the annoying process of re-entering the password into the bricks, I began mentally cursing the examiner for making this puzzle. Seriously. Entering passwords into a brick wall, the hell is this? FNAF3? Am I going to get some true ending out of this? No, I am just going to get fucking hunted on the damned island after this. After finishing my mental tirade against this puzzle, I punched in the last brick as I stood up again, to be met with the satisfying noise of my victo. BZZT, miss me? Well, better late than never. Over the speaker came the voice of the examiner. Oh, nice to hear from you again. Anyways, did I pass? I don't see the door opening, I said in confusion while looking at the 4 walls waiting for a doorway to appear. Yeah, about that. You failed again. I just didn't want to use the soundboard this time, came the mocking voice of the examiner, who most likely had the biggest shit-eating grin on his face currently. Oh, you motherfucker. As I began to cuss him out, I was interrupted. Oh, and I wanted to alert you that you have 66 hours left. Damn, you're slow. What are you even doing? Monologuing in your head? Anyways, have fun with the puzzle. And with a click, the voice was disconnected. Okay, so it probably is the piece colors, even though that contradicts the rules. Well, that actually makes sense. The examiner is a criminal and literally benefits from me wasting time. Well, let's get back to brick pressing. For the third time I began pressing the bricks, though with a notably faster pace, having somewhat remembered the layout of the bricks. Clack, and with a heavy sound a doorway appeared on the wall with the chessboards displaying another staircase that led further towards the bottom of the trick tower. Thank Cammy for that. If I had to mess with those bricks one more time there would be hell to pay. Well, let's keep going. It should only be around 2 o'clock right now. I could probably complete 1 or 2 more rooms today at this rate. As I finished voicing my thoughts aloud I entered the next room, and much like the previous few times the door shut behind me. Although the room this time was much smaller than all the other rooms, only having a small pillar with an item atop it. What do we have here? Another fuel canister. Now that I think about it, I could have very well run out of fuel earlier. Maybe a pacing mechanism where if I am not fast enough I get eliminated by being unable to progress. Though before pocketing it I further inspected the fuel canister, turning it around to be met with a simple drawing of an eye and permanent marker on the bottom. Deciding to inspect my current canister I peered under the lantern only to be disappointed by the fact that it was empty. Well, they would not place this symbol to denote the fuel if it was not needed. I probably could try switching fuels. Deciding to do just that I quickly turned off the lantern and unscrewed the fuel canister, and made the swap. Tick. Illuminating the lantern once again I am no longer met with the comforting warm light I had been used to. Instead the lantern was illuminated by a ghastly light purple flame. Whistle. Well, would you look at that. In surprise I looked at the walls of the room to be met with drawings on the wall in a luminescent white color that did not appear previously. Chapter 15. Looking at the luminescent markings that had appeared after the use of the strange lantern oil, a small smile crept on my face. This reminds me of an old puzzle game I used to play. Anyways, it looks like clues can now be discovered depending on what fuel type I am using. Though it seems there are not any clues to be had, as all that got illuminated was an outline of a door and a glowing brick alongside some strange symbols that were strewn on the wall for decoration. Clack. After pressing in the glowing brick the doorway appeared as I entered the staircase leading to the next room, though unlike previous sequences of entering a room the door surprisingly did not shut behind me. Well, that probably means I will have to go back up there to solve the next puzzle, huh? I mentally noted as I continued to look around the room and was met with quite the sight. 3 large archways divided the room into 3 main sections with 2 paintings on either side of the walls in each subsection, making 6 total paintings in the room. These 2 are an owl and a bat, the next set is an otter and a buffalo, while the last set is truly weird. One is a lanky bipedal creature covered in fur with numerous set of arms and 4 beady eyes on an oblong face, while the other one looks like a stereotypical ghost. Further looking and prodding around the room resulted in nothing of note, only wasting my time. Walking back to the entrance of the room I looked back at the room as I began considering all of the clues I have gathered. The only real clues I have gathered most likely again relate to the light. The animals seem to be divided in 3 groups. Being diurnal, nocturnal, and supernatural animals, my current theory is each of these correlates to a certain type of light. But even with the luminescent oil nothing changed when pressing or touching the paintings. The only thing I can think of now is the upstairs room having something to do with all of this. Deciding to go back and ascend the staircase back to previous room I am once again met with all of the symbols I previously thought were useless. I am actually brain dead, aren't I? After only a second of looking at the symbols I am met with 6 pictograms that somewhat resemble animals. However, the reason for my distress at looking at the symbols was because after touching one of the animals the stone it was on depressed in an all too similar manner. I actually got stuck on what is essentially a Skyrim puzzle. Following this came the repeated actions of pressing the buttons and descending the stairs to see if the button and painting matched. After numerous trips back to the room I finally matched the paintings with the buttons. Yet nothing has happened. Okay, let's mess with the lantern and hope that does something. Fatigued both mentally and physically I sat down in the middle of the room as I fiddled with the lantern and changed the light level of the room while inspecting all the changes made. Going from luminescent, to turning it off, and finally normal lamp oil, Yet nothing changed at all. Continuing all sorts of nonsense, I tried every sort of idea that came to mind, yet no progress was made. Turning off my lamp to begin switching oils again, I tucked the normal oil can into my inner coat pocket and in turn took out the luminescent oil can and screwed into the bottom of the lantern. Again illuminating the room in an eerie purple light, I look around the room once again with dead eyes, having already lost interest in the challenge the puzzles brought. They were not exactly fun or engaging, having weird nonsensical solutions that were not really intuitive or alluded towards. Clack, yet for whatever reason a doorway at the end of the room opened up, stunning me as I froze in place with wide yes staring at the phenomenon. Why did it only open now? Wait, was it another weird order thing with the lights changing? I originally went luminescent, greater than dark, greater than light, but before it opened it was light, greater than dark, greater than luminescent. Is it supposed to represent a day cycle of night to day and the luminescent is supposed to be some sort of witching hour? You know what, I just won't question it and just move on from here. Moving through the door, I am met with yet another staircase downwards. Well, at least I am making some sort of progress. Getting closer towards ground level and all that. Entering another small room, I am met with a notable difference to past rooms. There is a visible door on the other side of the room. Additionally, the room seems to be furnished with a table and chair with a box on the table and a small bed frame and mattress pushed into the corner of the room alongside other smaller pieces of furniture. BZZT, you have reached the first checkpoint in 11 hours. You have 61 hours left to make it to the bottom of Trick Tower. Feel free to use this rest area before continuing on your way. Also, please note that the first checkpoint signifies completing the first quarter of this exam. After the automated voice over the speakers finished its information dump, silence returned to the room. Deciding to turn off my lantern due to there already being lighting in the room, I began to take in the information. So it's been 11 hours since I started, making it roughly 7 in the evening. I have 3 quarters left of this exam, and if I were to retire for the night and had roughly 8 hours of sleep tonight, I would have 53 hours, making my average pace 19 to 20 hours per quarter, leaving me 12-ish hours for fuck-ups. Meaning I can hopefully get out of here in time, or with time to spare, which would be very useful as it would allow me time to memorize hunter tags in the crowd of passing examinees. Well, I guess I will retire for the night. Is there a clock or something around here? Aha! There is, good old digital alarm clock. Let's set you for 8 hours and subsequent alarms in 8 hours 5 minutes, 8 hours 10 minutes, etc. Well, good night, I guess. And with that I flicked the light switch on the wall and laid down on the bed. Chapter 16. Seeing as this is your first rest area, I thought you would not need a large meal. So here is a light snack. Reading the note card set right next to the box on the table, I am at a loss for words. No wonder this fucker is in prison. Anyways, let's see what I will be having for breakfast. Taking the lid off of the box, I am met with a glass of water and half a stack of saltine crackers. Bruh, was my intellectual response to the current situation. Picking up the crackers and the glass of water, I took my breakfast into the next room of the exam, deciding to eat on the way, though not forgetting to grab the lantern and its fuel canisters before leaving. I feel like I should conserve the special fuel. That and the last puzzle required me to start the room with the normal light. Anyways, quickly making the swap marking the end of my morning preparations, I walked towards the door leading to the next chamber. Creak opening the door to the next room, I am once again met with darkness, being unable to see anything. Oh yeah, I need to turn on the lantern. Anyways, why the hell is the door squeaking? This place was just built for the exam. Did they run out of budget after the shitty puzzles? No wonder I'm eating fucking saltines right now. After finishing both venting my frustrations with the current exam and my saltines, I entered the next puzzle room to be met with the all too familiar sound of the door closing behind me. What next? A 5-second unskippable cutscene showing me a door has opened? Looking around the chamber of similar construction to the previous, with exception of the numerous oddly shaped mirrors hung on 2 of the 4 walls of the rectangular room. The mirrors seemed something out of a funhouse, distorting the reflection of those displayed in various odd manners. Well, I was expecting mirrors, just not in this manner. Not sure if that's a good or bad thing though. Continuing to inspect the various mirrors hung around the room, I noted there were 12 mirrors and each one distorted my figure in a different way each time. Other than that, there was nothing different about the mirrors. Each one is in the same frame and has the same dimensions as all the others. Now I feel that it was redundant to switch out fuel canisters. Well, here goes. Deciding that there was nothing new to discover in normal light conditions, I made the switch to the luminescent oil again. Once again the purple flame began to reveal more clues. This time it made one of the surfaces of the mirror glow in a bluish-white color. However, on further inspection, my reflection no longer appeared on the surface of the mirror. Instead, the warped image of a wooden door could be seen on the formerly reflective surface of the mirror. This is most likely the way to the next room. But the actual manner of revealing the door is unknown to me. Once again going over any clues given, I begin to construct various ideas and possible solutions to solving the puzzle. That could work, right? After having arrived at the most possible solution, I decided to enact my idea. Crash. With a swift kick, my foot crashed through the glass surface of the mirror, revealing a wooden door that was behind the mirror. I wasn't expecting that to work, but I kinda did. I guess this puzzle gauntlet has truly deepened my appreciation of Occam's razor and kiss. These puzzles have all been challenging me because I assumed there were rules, complex solutions, or that they would follow common sense. Assuming that all or any three of these things will be found in this new world I found myself in is just idiotic. While contemplating the flaws in my mindset, I walked through the wood door to be met with a room with the exact same construction and decoration as the previous one. Except rather than a single mirror glowing like the previous room, all but one were glowing a strange blue-white color. Not what I was expecting, but here goes. Looking at all of the glowing mirrors in detail, I could see 11 doors behind each one. Deciding to check the 12th mirror, I saw that there was nothing special about it. Crash. And walked through the mirror frame and opened the door behind it and proceeded to the next room. And in a similar manner began to work my way through the puzzles at a much faster pace than earlier. Having slowly learned the sly thought process that created these puzzles with the sole intent of slowing me down, eased the difficulty curve that the rooms offered as I continued to descend the tower. Time skip because I can't be bothered to design another puzzle. Why in God's name did they put high-powered lasers in there? Oh, because lasers are on the electromagnetic spectrum like hell. What next? Is the bastard going to lock me in a box with gamma rays until I grow a third eye? Walking out of a stone doorway is Magenta, though looking much more worse for wear. Having lost his coat and scarf along the way and large bags under his eyes, though the most noticeable change would be his now singed hair and the smoke wafting from his head. POV change. God, my everything hurts. At least I got out of there alive, thankfully. Though if I am correct, this next room should be a rest area, which will be nice as I am starving right now. Entering the room and turning off the flashlight I received as an upgrade to the lantern in room number 15, I was met with the identically constructed rest area that I had seen a couple of times before this. Walking over to the table, I sat down and leaned back into the backrest as I looked up at the timer located on the wall. 23 hours left. Well, I guess I will sleep for 6 hours. Wow, I can't believe I said that. I'll set the alarm after I finish eating and then hit the hay. Following my verbal announcement, I treated myself to the luxurious meal of a ham and cheese sandwich with a carton of milk. I wonder if it's called Saherton cheese instead of American in this world? With this thought, I ended my meal and went to bed. Chapter 17. Beep 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 buck. What time is it? 17? A clock only goes to 12. What dumbass built that thing? In a half-awake stupor, I rolled out of my bed as I looked up at the clock displaying a countdown with roughly 17 hours remaining. Proceeding to start moving around to get my blood flowing and fully wake up, I begin pacing around the room while recollecting my thoughts from the previous day too. It's a fucking timer, you dumbass. Sigh. Gathering my belongings, I make my way out of the door leading to the next room, being a small cubicle with only a large lever mounted in the middle of the floor. Well, let's see what you can do. creak, and with a bit of effort flick the switch to its second position, and after a short time frame an audible click was made. What happened? But before I could finish, the speakers flared to life and interrupted me for the nth time during the exam. "BZZT, congrats, you have beat all the puzzles that were built. The exit door has been opened," came the tired voice of my examiner, though I have no idea why he would be so tired right now. If my math is correct, it should only be about 3 in the afternoon? That, and also where the hell is the exit door? Looking around the room there was nothing, and soon his patience began to expire. "Hey, you said the exit opened, no? So where is the exit?" I asked aloud, hoping the examiner was listening. Yet there was no response, just silence as I began to think over the announcement. He said it opened but never say where it was that it opened. God, I have to backtrack, don't I? Turning around and facing the doorway I came through. Sigh, here goes. Quickening my pace, I began to rescale Trip Tower, peering into each room and looking for any new additions. A few hours later. Looking at the wooden doorway before me, I can't help but be stunned into silence. This fucker made me backtrack all the way to the start of the challenge. Swinging opening the door, I see a hole in the floor with a ladder leading down into darkness. Well, if I get out of here there might be actually good food, or I can get some sleep. Down I go. Though during my second descent of the tower, instead of going down rung by rung, I slid down by slightly gripping the beams of the ladder. Now all I need is for Snake Eater to start playing. Finally arriving at the bottom of the ladder, a doorway opens up into a small clearing as several people's gazes turn to look at me and my disheveled appearance. BZZT contestant number 38 magenta-magenta has finished the third exam in 16th place with 11 hours left. As I walked out into the circular room, the speaker announced my time and ranking in the exams. Oh? That's nice. With this time I can study the exam tag numbers and probably rest before Zevil Island. Deciding to sit down with my back against the door I entered from, I began to look around the room at the various other examinees who had made it this far. Well, it doesn't look all that different than the anime. For now, I should rest up as this exam has put me through the ringer. With that thought, I closed my eyes as I sat leaning against the wall and fell asleep. Chapter 18. End of the round time. Being woken up to an overhead announcement, my senses quickly sharpen as I pay attention to what was currently happening. Man, I need to be more careful. I fell into too deep of a sleep. And I am still tired, deciding to get up and move towards the center of the room where the rest of the remaining contestants congregated. I kept my ears open for any subsequent announcements. BZZT, the third round has officially ended. The number of remaining participants who reached the end goal is 25. The number of alive contestants is 24. After the second announcement, a large door opened inside the chamber we were inside. Subsequently, everyone began to filter out of the tower and outside onto the shore of a beach. If you looked out to the horizon, you could see a small island in the distance. That should be our next destination. I wonder who I will be hunting? Pulled out from my thoughts by the sound of footsteps coming towards our group. Congratulations to all of you for making it out of the tower. Having finished the third exam means you have only 2 more parts of the exam before you, the fourth exam and the final. The fourth round of the exam shall be taking place on Zevil Island. Well, let's get started soon, no? Snap. Having finished talking for the moment, the examiner snapped his fingers. Following his actions, extra staff from the Hunters Association wheeled out a small stand with a box on top of it. What's that for? Looking at the new addition, some contestants began to wonder out loud the possible purpose of the box. A lottery? Proposed a remaining contestant as he looked at the box with curiosity. This is a box lipo, the examiner of the fourth phase of the Hunter exam announced with excitement as he grinned looking at the current examinees. Dear God! Came the voice of another mob contestant. There is more to this box lipo, further explained in a slow pace, taking in the reactions of everyone. No. Shortly replied the mob examinee. Ahem, the purpose of this box is for each of you to draw one lot to determine the hunters and the prey. You see, inside this box are 24 numbered cards corresponding to the numbers on each of your contestant badges. Each of you will pick a card. How about in order you arrived at the bottom of the tower? Looking on as contestants began to take their lots one by one, Lipo and the exam staff quietly waited until the crowd settled down once again. Now that you all have your lots, you can break the seal on them to see what number you received. Again, the number corresponds to another examinee's badge but also who you will be hunting. For the fourth exam, if you bring in the badge of the person you are hunting, you will get 3 points. Finishing the exam while still holding on to your badge will also be worth 3 points. You may also bring in other badges not belonging to yourself or your target, but they will only be worth 1 point. These points will determine if you pass or fail the third exam. To pass you will need 6 points at the end of the testing period. And while there are more rules, those will be further explained on your transport to the island. Short time skip. You guys just voted on what you wanted to do, felt up traps, and broke a wall? That's bullshit, I exclaimed in outrage. That gauntlet of puzzles was harmful to mind, body, and soul. Don't you mean deal with traps? If we felt them up we would be dead. There were all sorts of dangers in our exam, replied Kurapika, who was confused by my summary of their experience during the third exam. Please don't remind me of that magenta. I am straight, okay? I didn't know she was a he. Don't worry, Leorio, there is nothing wrong with having such preferences. Though I am surprised this entire conversation went over Kurapika's head, I replied with a smug smile. Seeing him like this definitely made me feel better about my experience during the exam. You bastard, Leorio shouted as he stared at me only to be interrupted by Kurapika. What do you mean by that? I am fluent in the common language alongside a few others. Is something perhaps lost in translation? He asked in confusion as he pulled out a notebook alongside a pen looking to write down the new information. I forgot, but the Kurta clan was pretty isolationist. Maybe they spoke their own language. Anyways, he is way too sheltered. May not my problem. Use a computer and search it up, but make sure the volume is up and you are searching on the videos tab. I suggested with a serious look on my face as Kurapika began scribbling into his notebook. While he was doing so, I met eye contact with Leorio and we both nodded our heads. I guess he is just using this as a way to get back at Kurapika, I thought as the conversation began to move onwards. Who did you two get for your targets? Leorio asked in modest curiosity, looking at the both of us from the corner of his eyes. Well, I didn't get either of you, I suppose, but to entertain your curiosity I was assigned number 89, I said in a small voice to ensure others on the boat did not overhear me. And if I remember correctly while observing the badges in the tower, 89 is the guy with long hair and cleft chin. I don't really know his name, must be a mob who doesn't pass this phase, I thought while turning my head to look out to sea while waiting for the responses of Kurapika and Leorio. I got 246, whoever that is, said Leorio dejectedly. I'd rather not say, it seems to be counterproductive to tell you guys, Kurapika said with a serious face as he put his notebook back inside his messenger bag. Hey! We told you ours, so why are you refusing to tell us? Leorio exclaimed in shock, seemingly offended his friend decided not to alert him of his target. Well, I don't care either way if you tell us or not. Yawn, I replied slowly out as I looked out to sea. Man, the waves of the ocean rocking the boat just make me really tired, don't they? Hold up. You're not helping here. And don't fall asleep either, Leorio said as he grabbed me by my shoulders and began to shake my body as the boat further closed in towards its destination. Chapter 19. If I could have everyone's attention, please. Turning away from the view of the sea, I look at one of the exam staff, a short woman with a headset and a uniform with the Hunters Association logo printed on the chest. Having caught everyone's attention, she began talking about the procedures for the exam. We have arrived at the exam grounds, so I would like to inform everyone of the rest of the exam rules. First, you all will be leaving the boat in order of who completed the third exam in intervals of 2 minutes. Second, the time limit of the exam is exactly 1 week from the time the first contestant leaves. Third, you must have 6 points and be here on the beach when the boat comes back to pick up any examinees on the 7th day of this test. Now may we please have the first contestant come forwards to depart? Finished speaking, she steps to the side of the plank bridge as she beckons forward HxH to leave the small boat. Second, after a small timer beeped, the exam staff ushered the next contestant onto the island. Fifth, with every person called, the more tense the remaining members on the boat were. Ninth, after all, every moment those before them had they could use to set up ambushes or get to advantageous positions. 16th, when my name was finally called, I slowly stood up and shambled towards the island. When I stepped foot on the beach, I quickened my pace and swiftly walked into the tree line of the island to obscure my vision from those on the boat. Once I made sure they could not see me, I made sure to make erratic movements. Already treaded paths just led to other people, and my target wasn't on the island yet, meaning it would be pointless to confront someone else. My best bet is to push towards the farther reaches of the island where no one is currently and find somewhere I can make camp for the week. I would much rather play the slow and methodical game than quickly try to hunt down my target only to fail to do so or get my tags snatched after the fact because I was too brash. Making another quick turn in the forest, I moved further inland while assessing my options and making plans for the week. Unfortunately, I lost a lot of my carrying capacity when my coat got burned in the tower, which is quite unlucky as up to that point I looted all of the safe rooms for supplies. Thankfully I still have my revolver with ammo to spare, the flashlight, my wallet with some paper bills. Those could be used for fire starting, and then a small metal cup that the food was served in could be used for cooking. Most of the useful stuff went into flames with the coat. Thinking about the few items I had at my disposal was depressing, but I still pressed on further into the island. Man, I wish I had one of those gamer systems that had a black hole inventory, then I could have grabbed every item in sight. Who knew Bethesda game habits could translate to real life? Hey! Chuckling at the thought, I slowly come to a stop and sharpen my senses and listen for anything. Sounds like flowing water, which will be essential during this exam. Slowly creeping out of the woods into a clearing, I am met with a small stream, nothing very deep, and didn't seem to be populated with marine life. I guess I will set up camp a little ways from here, as it would be a poor decision to set up camp in a clearing. Deciding to turn around and walk back into the wooded areas of the island, I looked for a suitable area to set up. I want somewhere with a thick-roofed canopy, as I would rather not deal with rain or morning dew. I have camped long enough to know that getting your sleeping area just sucks. That, and it would hopefully hide any smoke from fires if I make one for boiling water or cooking any small game I manage to catch. With those features in mind, I inspected the nearby area for a suitable location. That over there should do wonders, I said in a small voice, being conscious to mitigate my presence on the island as much as possible. Moving towards the designated area, I looked up at the small tree that was well below the others in height that would make an excellent sleeping place in one of the low-hanging branches to keep me off the ground. That and the taller trees would make a great secondary buffer in addition to the canopy of the smaller tree. Well, time to get to work setting up camp. Following this thought, I began to collect and forage some items from around the area, creating a bow drill to start a fire and creating a Dakota fire pit, which was just 2 chambers I dug in the ground near the base of the tree and connected with a small hole in the walls separating the chambers. Eventually, I will create a small fire to boil some water to drink and look for something to eat sooner or later. Next, I need to consider both my offense and defense. I am way too heavy of a sleeper, and I could probably be attacked during the night easily by both wild animals or contestants. I need some sort of way to keep alert. The ideal situation would have multiple watch shifts with someone, but I doubt I could find someone who I trust. As for offense, do I want to lay a trap and hope the person who is hunting me and a few more contestants fall for it to get points, or do I want to actively look for my target? Probably the latter for me. I'd rather just find and shoot the bastard in the leg and take the tag off him. With my future plans concluded, I start working on the fire as the sun starts to slowly set in the distance. Chapter 20. Well, ain't that just swell? Sitting up high inside a tree, I sat still while observing the movements of another examinee from afar, looking up towards the sun that was in the middle of the sky, marking that it was noon on the 4th day while on the island. Well, I can safely say that my target's behavior is disappointing. It seems he is just camping most of the time. Maybe he will try to ambush a couple of people or his target on the last day? His only equipment is a medium-sized sheath knife, though his use of it seems practiced. Thankfully he doesn't seem to be too much of a character, i.e. boring, and most likely not an end-user if anime logic is used in this situation. Overall he is just too normal, maybe some sort of military background or outdoorsman. He is quite good at the wilderness survival aspect of this exam, being able to obtain and cook food and so on. Looking around my watch post I built over the course of the last 1.5 days, I grabbed my cup of water as I slowly combed over every step I made and planned to make. As much as it sucked at first, the muddying of the clothes on the second day was a good idea. The white t-shirt and magenta pants gave me no advantage on this island with 2 non-users. Then using various vines, branches, and detritus to create a poor man's ghillie suit was an alright idea, though the thing's a bit itchy. And then slowly moving and scouting out the island was alright. Didn't see too many other people and they seemed to only pass through my vicinity and no one was actually staying around me. However, I was incredibly lucky when I found my target number 89 on the night of the 3rd day while lurking around the island. After that, I climbed up inside a tree a long distance away from his camp and tied myself around the trunk of the tree. The real reason I decided to move so cautiously was as a form of basic training. Stalking my target like this and sneaking around and observing various examinees' daily schedules and territories they tended to stay in was excellent practice for not only Zets but also for blacklist jobs when I become a hunter, as they will prove excellent for making connections, training/experience, and money. Now that I think about, Magenta in the manga was a hired gun, no? Maybe I will be able to pick up the work easier than normal. Climbing down from my makeshift tower I began rifling through the pile of leaves covering the base of the roots of the tree. I pull out some general supplies I left there, some nuts and berries that I saw other wildlife eating to ensure they were safe, a small box with my extra ammo inside, and my fire bow I made 4 days ago on the evening of the first day. Eating a light meal I began looking over both my gun and ammunition while considering my plan of attack and its several backup plans. This guy tends to be quite jumpy at night time when sleeping, waking up multiple times to animals walking around or distant noises resonating throughout the island. More importantly, though, every time this happens he wakes up more and more fatigued, and this will only get worse as the week goes on. Therefore, I will probably rest tonight and the day after. In the early morning, probably 3 to 4 in the morning, I will creep up and shoot him. The hardest part will be pulling the trigger, I guess. Finishing up my meal I stow my items back beneath the tree as I move to go on a foraging/scouting trip around the general area I'm occupying on the island. Looking for other signs of humans or disturbances in the area is key to knowing if someone is stalking me. And while I did survey the same general area, I made sure to walk the area in different ways to make sure someone could not profile me like I am currently doing to my target. Oh? What's this? Looking at numerous footprints running through the soft ground, I look around for anyone nearby. Seeing and hearing nothing, I swiftly move towards the tracks, and while I don't know anything about tracking, I can deduce the tracks are recent due to the crisp edges of the indentations and knowing that they were not there yesterday. It was a group that moved through here. There are 2 different sizes of prints. No, it's actually 3 looking at it closer. The only group of 3 I can think of are the Amori brothers. I wonder what it is they are doing around here though? Looking back into the center of the island, I can only describe what feels like pure dread washing over me. Every hair on my body was standing up as I felt engulfed in a deluge of negative emotions. Holy hell, is that Hisoka's killing intent? That means that Kurapika and Leorio just exchanged their lives for 2 spare tags and Gon secured his points. But man, is this off-putting. Being unable to move due to someone else's bloodlust. Deciding to continue my scouting as it would take me away from where I sensed danger, I moved further into the forest, even if I would rather be in the comfort of my tree. Maybe I should track the Amori brothers. Could be some buffer points in case I am unable to get to my target. Thinking about it, wasn't Killua's target one of the brothers, or was it the other way around? Following the trail further, I made sure to move quietly while trying to spot anyone ahead. Hearing some noise ahead, I began to flank the origin as I moved towards denser foliage while looking to see what was happening. Imbecile. You're too scared to fight some kid without us? You can't fight him, is that it? Looking at the person who spoke, I saw the middle Amori brother, who wore a typical sock hat, kick down the smallest brother to the ground in anger. No, that's not it at all. I was being nice. I mean, look at the poor kid, he probably only got here through sheer luck. He is too innocent to hurt all of it badly, so I was going to just spare him and steal his tag when he went to sleep. Lying on the spot in the most unconvincing manner, the smallest brother began making floundering under the pressure of his two brothers' glares. Huh? You making fun of us? The largest of the trio spoke in a terse and displeased manner. Okay. I was just joking. Ha ha ha. Well, because you reacted so poorly to my joke, then I guess I don't have any other choice. I'll fight this kid by myself. Hey kid, give me your badge and I won't hurt you, okay? With fake bravado, the smallest brother began pumping himself up as he strode towards someone who I couldn't see from my position. However, if my guess is correct, that should be Killua. I deduced using my foreknowledge of events. Baka. And with a bored yet measured tone, someone outright mocked the smaller brother in his face. Yeah, that's him alright. Chapter 21. Oh. What did you just call me? In a fit of anger, the smallest of the three Amori brothers, Amori, stepped closer to Killua with a frown on his face as he looked down at the young Zoldyck. Bam! Suddenly he shot out his foot in a Yakuza kick straight to the core, sending Killua flying back a few feet. Ha! Take that! Standing over the silver-haired boy, Amori flashed a victorious smile as he turned around to see if his siblings were watching him. Killua, on the other hand, was lying flat on his back and staring up into the sky with a bored look on his face. Killua POV. Oh, he's not getting up. Must have really felt that one. Listening to the annoying cheering of the clown who just kicked me was testing my patience. Well, I'd call him a clown, but there is someone more fitting for that. And upsy daisy. Jumping up and landing on my feet, I looked towards the three brothers with an appraising look. They are really weak. I was really looking forward to a challenge here. Even Heaven's Arena was more entertaining than this. While I was thinking to myself, the three brothers were arguing amongst each other. Wow, he really did feel it. The kid doesn't even look hurt, said the middle brother, whose name I don't really know. He is probably the brains of the whole group. If I take him out of the picture, they will all fold. Thinking of ways to get rid of them with the least amount of hassle was probably harder than just outright killing them, but it was something to keep myself occupied. How weak, can't even beat up a small kid now. Chiding the smallest brother, the large one looked at both myself and his brother with a look of disappointment. And then finally, the biggest of the three is probably just muscle. Sigh. Looking at my prize for dealing with this sideshow was a badge with the number 198 on it. Not my target, but that means there is a good chance that one of the other two is my target. Number 198, that isn't my target, but seeing as you three came together as a group, one of you is 199? Catching their attention while also provoking them, I waited for them to recollect and make their move. Shit. This is no ordinary kid, get into position you two. We need to be serious, okay? Responding the fastest was the middle brother, who began to move behind the other two in the reverse triangle position. I thought their main appeal was their great teamwork, yet they have to use verbal commands to work together. Why am I not even surprised anymore? Internally sulking at how unengaging this exam has been so far, I look on as the three brothers slowly start inching towards me. Well, I guess messing with them a bit could be fun. With a smirk on my face, I quickly jump forward and veer to the left a bit as I instantly scale a tree and catapult myself behind them from up above. Quick! Above us! Screamed the middle brother in panic. However, he was too late as I was already behind him. Tap, kicking him behind the knee, his legs gave out and he kneeled on the ground. Perfect. Tightening the muscles in my hand as I have done thousands of times before, I put the now razor-sharp nails next to his neck that was at the exact level for my hands to comfortably sit at his neck. I wouldn't move if I was you. My fingernails are sharper than the blade of a knife. Stunning the two other brothers as they look at me holding their brother hostage. However, the bigger one seems to be a bit too stupid to understand what's happening, so I let the tip of my nails draw blood on my hostage's neck to further cow them. The two brothers were silent, yet their faces easily portrayed their current thoughts. Wow, they are mad. I wonder why though? Slipping my free into my hostage's pockets, I retrieved his badge, which was number 197. Man, I am really unlucky today. Looking at the third brother, my lips thinned into a slight frown due to how long this whole situation was taking. So, this guy is number 197. Now let me come forward and say, that in our current situation I absolutely no intuition, but still let me guess. You are number 199, no? I asked with a deadpan face while boring holes into the last brother with my eyes. I am. He gritted out in displeasure. Then would you be so nice as to gift me your badge? I asked with a mischievous smile on my face as I gestured him closer with my free hand. TCH. Here you aggressively throwing the badge at me like a frisbee. The older brother continued to stare at me, anticipating my next movements. Snatch grabbing the badge out of the air, I look at the number, confirming that it was indeed my target, number 199. Finally, now I just need to deal with the peanut gallery. Thank you very much. But seeing as how I do not need these other badges, winding back my hand while purposefully showing the number to a certain onlooker, I slung the badge at a high speed using my full strength. Though before sending it flying across the island, I quickly switched badges, sending the other badge in that direction. And I will send the other one this way. Right after throwing the first one, I spun around 180 degrees and threw the other badge. Hopefully switching the badges wastes that idiot's time, seriously trying to take advantage of me beating up your target. Some people. Well, you guys only have 3 days left to find your badges, good luck. After looking at their stunned faces for a moment, I turned around and dashed into the forest and quickly made my way to the last person who was watching the events that occurred. It's the old man. Looking at him from above from a tree branch, I began wondering what he was doing here. He is not chasing after the badges, so they aren't his targets, and I don't think I am his target. Knowing my luck, he's going to come over here next to fuck with me because he is bored or something. So I better get out of here. Being pulled out of my thoughts, I heard the old man grumbling to himself as he began to slowly away from his original position. Not a bad idea. With a small grin forming on my face, I began quietly stalking the old man from the treetops. Chapter 22. The damn brat is fucking with me, there is no other explanation. After having finally returned to my makeshift camp, I found all my supplies and items missing, even though the leaves and ground surrounding the tree looked perfectly undisturbed. I probably should not have tempted him by speaking my thoughts aloud. Looking around for any signs of another person present with me led to a dead end, though I never really expected to find him. Grumble, well, I probably won't get my stuff back. Fucker even stole my wallet, not just the cash, for whatever reason. While my current situation was annoying, it wasn't horrible. I still had the items on my person and badge, which was enough to finish the exam. Hopefully, Killua will get bored soon enough and stop messing with me, as it would be rather annoying trying to get my target's badge with his interference. I guess I would rather move up my plans and take out my target tonight, as I would otherwise have to go around collecting resources again before I try attempting to take my target's tag. Seeing as how it was already beginning to get dark out, I still had a long while to wait before moving out for my target. So are you just going to sit here? Coming from right behind me was a familiar voice. Though initially startled by the sudden noise, I wasn't all that surprised he started talking to me. Well, I already have tracked down my target and studied his habits. The only thing left is to wait for him to lower his guard and I'll take him out. Deciding to humor him, I began talking about my plans for the early morning. Might as well, even I have to agree with his sentiment. This exam has been pretty boring so far. It's been essentially a camping trip the whole time. Turning around and looking to see Killua sprawled out on one of the limbs of the tree, making him look like a lazy house cat. Neat. By the way, have you seen the others? Seemingly bored of the current topic, he abruptly transitioned to another topic of discussion. "I don't know, have you seen my stuff?" I mockingly said while looking him dead in the eye. "What, did you lose something? Maybe you forgot where you put it? I know you're getting on in the years, maybe getting dementia." Surprised by the question, he was a bit too stunned to answer right away, though he did answer by deflecting the question and taunting me in an attempt to shift my attention away from the issue. "Sure. Anyways, I have not seen the others. For whatever reason not many people have hung around this area of the island. Well, there's actually like 7 people over here, which is about a 1/4 of the contestants." Turning back around to look at my target once again, I wait for Killua to continue our conversation. Yet no reply came after I spoke. Turning around again, I noticed that he was gone, with the only trace of him being there previously was a small pile of my stuff that he supposedly had never seen. "Well, that's nice. Looks like almost everything is here except the cash in my wallet and food." Leaning back into the trunk of the tree with a defeated look on my face, I began the long stakeout of my target. Time skip? Well, judging by the position of the moon, it will soon be morning. Yawned, slowly stretching my body before descending the tree. I recheck my equipment for what must have been the 1000th time. Well, let's get this show on the road. Slowly moving through the forest with practiced steps, I began to creep closer to my target. With each passing second the tension in my body increases. While I may have the skills to take a life and the equipment to do so, putting those skills into practical use will be much harder, especially for my first ever time. And while I could just take the tag or injure him, I decided to stall myself and learn to be able to take a life in this comparatively controlled environment with good conditions, then out on the field when I become a hunter. 2. His camp is up ahead. I need to be more careful of my footing now. There have been many previous cases of him waking up over broken twigs or shuffling of leaves, so I need to make as quiet of an approach as possible. Raising my already high focus to another level, I begin the last stretch of this hunt. There he is. Eventually the woods began to clear and revealed a small area devoid of too much greenery was revealed to me. In the center of the clearing was the sleeping body of my target next to the smoldering remains of what used to be a small fire alongside a few other personal items. Well, here we are. The last step: unholstering my revolver and slowly cocking the gun, I aim for his head to finish the job quickly. Count of 3? Yeah, let's go with that. Mentally motivating myself, I steeled my ult to pull the trigger. 3 bang. With barely a whisper, I just ended another man's life. Following the deed, I went through his personal belongings and took his badge, number 89, and tucked it inside my waistband next to my tag. Well, it's nearly morning, meaning there are 2 days left until the exam ends. Though I don't think I will be sleeping anytime soon. Looking down at the body of my target, whose name I don't even know, I begin thinking of what I should do to his body too. The least he deserves is something resembling a proper burial. Moving back to my camp to retrieve my tools, I begin reflecting on the first kill of both my lives. Chapter 23. I feel awful currently. Digging a grave after pulling an all-nighter is not the most logical of choices, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. Using 2 sticks like tongs, I took my cup of boiling water off a small fire, completing my preparations for breakfast. Wow. Boiled water and assorted nuts for a meal. God, I cannot wait for this thing to be over. Eating my tasteless meal in silence, I ruminate over my time on the island and the hunter's exam as a whole. I mean, I touched up on my wilderness survival skills a bit, but besides some of the skills I received on transmigration or some old skills from my previous life, the only breakthroughs I have made were in my rudimentary stealth skills, navigating stressful situations, and killing someone. Anyways, over the course of this exam I have begun to find my limits both physically and mentally, but I haven't really pushed myself all that much in most aspects. I guess I have been too focused on either the present or the far future. In turn, I have been worrying about surviving and fearing the future that I have not done much. And while Nen would be a great tool to have currently, there is no feasible way to complete the exams while learning Nen. Plus, I would rather learn slowly and build a solid foundation than rush things and get myself injured. Deciding to retire to my spot up in my watchtower, I closed my eyes to focus on my other senses. While I believe learning Nen might not be feasible, meditating, reflecting on my past actions, or further pushing my five senses are all great ways to start at least. And it gives me something to do while waiting for either my hunter to show up or for the boat pickup in 2 days. From then on, for the rest of the day, I began to recoup and train, as the mental disturbance of my first kill wasn't really allowing me to go to sleep. If I wanted to fall asleep, I would probably have to pass out from exhaustion, but that would be dangerous on the island, so I would try to either get some light rest or stay up and crash when we get back to the boat. Scene change. So what should we do? Looking over to his friends, temporary allies, Leorio asks about possible steps forward. This was due to them being at a bit of a roadblock. His target was tracked back to a secluded cave on the island that would be easily trapped and defended. And while a preliminary test of checking for traps by poking and prodding by tossing rocks or poking the mouth of the cave with a long stick. While you didn't find any traps doesn't mean that there aren't any or the person inside isn't dangerous. It's best that we be very careful when trying to storm the cave and make sure to not lower our guard. While Kurapika's suggestion was sound, Leorio Bean himself decided upon another route of proceeding. I'll go by myself. I would rather not have you two hurt because of me. If things are safe for you guys, I will call for you, okay? Standing up from behind the bush he was using as cover, Leorio began to stride towards the mouth of the cave. I refuse. Though as a compromise we will wait 30 minutes before following in after you if we do not hear anything. Quickly retorting Leorio's idea of going solo, Kurapika began making plans for how the whole operation would be commenced. Huh? I refuse. You guys just go wait by the boat and finish up the exam without me if I don't come back. Surprised by his friend's quick refusal to go along with his plan, Leorio attempted to dissuade them. Not possible. Unfortunately, his attempts were in vain as Kurapika doubled down again and refused to leave. Sorry Leorio-san, but we aren't leaving you here. And a subsequent refusal from Gon further shattered Leorio's argument. Sigh. Okay, fine. I will go into the cave and all that jazz. You guys will wait out here while I bravely charge into the cave and retrieve my target's badge. Pumping himself up, he walks up to the mouth of the cave with a smirk on his face before turning around to wave goodbye to his friends. Unfortunately, Kurapika and Gon gave him a disappointed look as they stared him down. Sure, because traipsing into a cave and beating up a young woman and taking her badge is the definition of a brave and noble person, Leorio. With a smirk on his face, Kurapika chided him, which didn't hurt nearly as much as the disappointing nod Gon gave him after Kurapika finished speaking. Oi, wait a minute. Since when did I say anything about noble? Recoiling in surprise, Leorio tried to defend himself, though the manner in which he did so was less than stellar. That's what you are concerned about? With a slight smile on his face, Kurapika waves to Leorio as the latter turns around to enter the cave. TCH. Quickening his pace, Leorio walks into the cave and disappears from Kurapika and Gon's sight. I hope he is okay in there. With a serious expression on his face, Gon stares at the mouth of the cave, waiting for any sign of his friend being okay. He should be fine, but just in case something goes wrong we need to be real. Before Kurapika could finish reassuring Gon, he was interrupted. Kurapika. Gon. Do not come in here. There are dangerous snakes. Ugh. Hearing the hurt cry from their friend, Gon and Kurapika looked at each other before nodding and sprinting into the mouth of the cave in hopes of aiding their close friend. Chapter 24. Leorio, are you okay? Quickly running through the mouth of the cave, Gon frantically looked for any signs of his friend inside the cave. After a moment of traveling through the dark cave, he saw a flickering light illuminating the walls of the cave just around the bend inside the cave. Quickly moving towards the light, Gon turns the corner to find his friend splayed on the ground unconscious, with multiple brown snakes either dead or fleeing from his body towards the outskirts of the chamber. That doesn't look good at all. Those snakes are not overly venomous, but the number of bites on his body will surely prove to be fatal. That, and he is in a Yamcha pose as Magenta-san called it, so he must surely be in danger of dying. recalling some not-so-useful insights from his older friend. Gon overestimated the danger of the situation they were in. Tap tap tap, pulled out of his thoughts by the sound of footsteps closing in on their location. Gon turns around to see Kurapika, who was a short distance behind him. "Leorio, are you okay?" In shock at his friend's current condition, neither of the two seemed to have noticed or paid any mind to the other two human occupants of the cave chamber. Idiots, why did you come here?" Struggling to get the words out of his mouth, Leorio tries to move his head to look up at Gon and Kurapika. "We can try to suck out the venom from his bites." Trying to find a stopgap solution, Gon begins to look at the visible bite marks on his arms and lifts it up to his face and further inspects the scope of the injuries. "It's better than nothing, but we need to get out of here and try to get him professional medical help." Grabbing Leorio by the other arm, Kurapika alongside Gon propped up Leorio in an attempt to relocate him elsewhere. "I wouldn't try to do so in this situation. Your escape is impossible and you will all die trying if you still try to get out of here instead of only your one friend there." Turning to look at the origin of the voice, they saw a young woman with her most noticeable feature being the large bulbous hat she wears. Finally noticing the other occupant of the cave, Gon and Kurapika inspect the inside of the cave in further depth than they did originally to find the unmoving stare of another person. This time a large man wearing a light cyan robe and numerous snakes crawling around his body. This man was contestant number 103, Barban the Snake Charmer, though his constant unwavering stare was unnerving to the three most recent occupants of the cave. "What do you mean by that?" Siding on the side of caution, Kurapika thought it would be best to try and get any information about the situation out of Leorio's target. "Barban's snakes have been instructed to only attack those who got too close to him or anyone who tried to leave the cave. Essentially you all have entered his trap after your friend didn't listen to my advice and tried to leave." Ponzu, seemingly calm about her current situation, slowly explained the unfortunate situation they got themselves in with an even voice. "Then why are you not concerned about leaving the cave? Won't you fail the exam or eventually starve if you stay in here too long?" Seemingly confused about why she was so collected about the situation, Gon questioned her. "I can always take the exam next year. Many people do, so I find no issue if I am unable to pass this year. Just getting this far is quite the accomplishment. As for me dying, I am not concerned as long as I have my badge on my person." Having already come to terms with the idea of failing the exam, Ponzu wasn't really fazed with the possibility of not passing this year's exam. "What does having your badge have to do with this situation? Having 3 points isn't going to get us out of here." Having finished leaning Leorio against the wall of the cave closest to the exit, Kurapika continued to ask for more information. "Did you not read up on everything when applying? They stated pretty clearly the purpose of the badge was for contestant identification and tracking. The points assigned to these badges were something made up for this exam. After this exam ends, they will most likely be sending out rescue teams using the GPS locators in the badges, and anyone who isn't near a badge and lost will be searched for at a later time, and if they aren't found then declared dead or missing." After finishing her explanation, she pauses for a moment whilst simultaneously putting her index finger on her temple, seemingly in thought. "Though with a conservative estimate, we will be found in 3 days, but it will take longer to extract us due to the snakes. So most likely your friend won't make it. I am sorry for your loss." With a slightly annoyed face she broke the news that they will most likely be stuck in the cave for a few more days. Ponzu put a hand over her stomach as her face morphed further into a grimace. Seemingly she had been here for quite a while and had no food or water on hand, and the thought of having to wait even longer for a meal was displeasing. Though just as quickly as it came, her face changed back to its usual expressionlessness as she gave her condolences about Leorio's death in her all too airy fashion. "Cough cough I'm not dead yet, you bitch." Cough, struggling to get his words out yet again, Leorio cusses out the young woman even in his absolutely terrible state. Comment. "We can fix that?" Tilting her head a bit to the side, Ponzu gave a rage-inducing eye smile that would make any anime protagonist's teacher jealous. Chapter 25. "I see." Turning away from Ponzu, Gon began walking towards Barban's slumped-over figure. Stopping just a few feet away from the snake charmer, Gon looked at the multiple venomous snakes coming out of the man's robes to protect his once living body. "Hey, what are you doing? You are only going to get yourself killed like your friend." Looking at the young boy move closer to the booby-trapped corpse, Ponzu seemed more confused than concerned at his actions. "Gon, we need to find some way to get Leorio out of here, and I don't think there is anything over there that could help us out. I mean, the guy is dead, it's not like he could help us in any way." Also confused by his friend's actions at this moment, Kurapika moved closer towards Gon and reached for his shoulder, wanting to pull him away from the venomous reptiles. "It's probably around here." Unfazed by the warnings of everyone else, Gon walked even closer to the corpse and began to search for something within the Barban's robes. All the while, numerous snakes began to coil around the limbs of Gon and bit him, injecting a large amount of their venom into his bloodstream. However, he was unhindered by the snakes as he grit his teeth and continued to look for something. And while this was occurring, everyone else was shocked into silence as they watched Gon get bit repeatedly whilst he was looting the body. Finally found it. Stumbling backward a small distance from the corpse, Gon fell flat on his back onto the cold hard ground of the cave. Seemingly an acceptable distance away from Barban's dead body, the snakes began to slither back toward their master's body to continue protecting it from all who got too near. "Gon, what was that for?" Dragging his friend away from the snakes, Kurapika seemed to start furiously sweating as the pressure from the worsening situation began to set in. Antidote. Give it to Leorio as he was bit first. Struggling to finish his sentence, Gon weakly moves his right outwards toward Kurapika. Looking at Gon's hand was a set of vials and a needle. Looking back at Gon for confirmation, he received a small nod. Setting down Gon right next to Leorio, Kurapika began administering the antidote by injecting a small amount into his bloodstream. After a small while, Leorio began showing signs of recovery alongside Gon. Though they were still roughed up around the edges, they would be able to move around after a little while. "By the way, how did you know he had an antidote on him?" Getting up and stretching a bit, Leorio curiously asked Gon. "Well, I didn't really know, but he is a snake charmer, so he would most likely have an anti-venom," cheerfully replied Gon with a small smile on his face as he rubbed the back of his head. "So you didn't know? Plus, isn't he a snake handler? He probably has immunity to this stuff, so why would he carry any anti-venom? He wasn't even carrying any super deadly snakes, just one of these snakes will only incapacitate a guy, not to kill. So the chance he brought any cures with him is just stupid." Pant. Having finished ranting, Leorio stares down Gon with a face flushed with anger. Teehee. Looking away while further scratching the back of his head, Gon tries to escape the multiple stares he is getting from the other occupants of the cave. "Why is it a question?" Voicing the thoughts of everyone else, Leorio continues to lecture Gon. "Well, it's nice that your friend is okay. But it was nicer when he wasn't shouting constantly. Sigh, anyways, it still hasn't changed the fact we are stuck here. And while I normally wouldn't have to ask, please do not try to pull a stupid stunt once again." Interrupting everyone, Ponzu reminded everyone about their current situation, though most likely she wished to silence Leorio as his loud reverberating across the walls of the cave was irritating. About that, turning around to look at her, Gon began to look at her personal items. No. Before he could even continue to speak, a flat refusal hit his ears like it struck does an otaku Japanese office worker. "Gay." Surprised by her refusal, Gon looked at her with a pleading look, almost begging her to hear him out. "Sorry, but I want no part in whatever half-baked plan you made. I am perfectly happy waiting it out if it means I will live another day." Pulling her backpack and canister of sleeping gas closer to her body, she crosses her arms under her chest and closed her eyes, refusing to look at the boy anymore. "But I know a way where we can all get out of here. You can even have Barban's badge and pass if we get out of here." Trying to catch her attention, Gon began baiting her with the idea of passing the exam. Pausing to gauge everyone's reaction, Gon seemed satisfied having caught everyone's attention. Even Ponzu seemed to be eager to hear what he was going to say. Though she never said anything, her body language said that she was paying rapt attention to everything he has said so far. You earlier said that you have a canister of sleeping gas there. If we were to detonate the canister of gas inside of the cave, even if the snakes are inside the nooks and crannies, they will pass out. If we hold our breath and then leave when all the snakes are asleep, we will be fine." Ending off his plan of action with a proud smirk, Gon turned around to look at Kurapika and Leorio, who seemed to have an excited smile on their faces. "Yeah, that won't work. Sleeping gas is not instant. You guys have been probably watching too many movies? It would take a good minute or two for the gas to get into all the cracks and put the snakes to sleep, and it would take even less for us. We would all just knock ourselves out, which is not the most pleasant of experiences." Poking more holes into another of Gon's ideas, Bonzu once again closed her eyes, signaling not to disturb her anymore. "Why do all my plans go wrong?" dejectedly cried Gon as Kurapika and Leorio looked at him with pity in their eyes. Chapter 26. Magenta POV. Well, the boat should be arriving at midday, or rather when the sun is overhead. It's currently early morning and I don't have much to do besides laze around in hopes of recovering some energy, as my attempts at sleeping have been. Anyways, I need something to do to occupy me while waiting. Staring out onto the horizon, I watched the sunrise while leaning against a small tree that was growing at the edge of the beach. Maybe some light exercise or back to meditation? The former doesn't sound so bad. Sitting up in that tree or scurrying around like it was a shitty stealth game probably put a permanent bend in my spine and my body stiff as all hell. Following my decision, I began to slowly jog up and down a stretch of the beach as a way to warm up. Once I was done running, after a short while I began moving on to various other forms of body weight exercises while making sure to not focus too much on one area. A few hours later. Well, it seems it is time to move out towards the boat. Let's just hope that everything went well for everyone else. They should be fine, right? Deciding to take the easier to navigate but longer way back to the boat, I move around the outskirts of the island and circle back around to the beach where the exam started. I have done a lot of running around this whole exam. It seems kind of pointless when one of my future NAN conditions is standing still. Though I guess it's never a bad thing to have good cardio endurance, all things considered. Turning around the corner of the beach, I could finally see a small group of contestants forming along the beach waiting for a small boat that was just anchored offshore. Quickening my pace by a small margin, I jog over to the rest of the contestants who were just standing around in tired silence. It seems no one was exit camping. Though it does make sense, people who are hunter material have some sort of pride, honor, eccentricity, etc., so such an orthodox tactic as waiting at the finish line is probably below them or just a waste of time when they could do it themselves. Looking around at everyone, I eventually spotted a familiar face. Moving over to Killua, I gave him a small nod as he looked at me. "Wow, old man, you look awful. After every single part of the exam, you look worse and worse. First, you lost your hat, then your coat, and now you are covered in mud and your shirt's all messed up. Maybe in the final phase, I'll take your boots." Poking fun at my current appearance, Killua was currently having a field day. I guess after we went separate ways during the exam, he was just hanging around the island while bored. Okay. Being much too tired to give him much in the way of a reaction, I instead opted to kill his excitement by giving him a bland reaction. Exclamation mark. Looking at Killua's confused reaction told me that it worked well enough. "You think you can piss me off? Ha. As if." While internally laughing in a smug manner, I looked down at the silver-haired kid with a neutral expression on my face. Thwack fuck. However, outside of my expectations, he kicked me in the shin, causing me to recoil in pain. "What was that for?" I said while giving him a nasty glare, all the while cupping my aching leg. "I didn't like your reaction." Instinctively. Further taunting me by sticking his tongue out. Killua and I started to further converse. Something we never really had the time to do before, as he mostly stuck around Gon and did not interact with the rest of the group nearly as much. Though I still find Kurapika and Leorio to be more agreeable than Gon and Killua. Or is that just my negative bias due to how much wasted potential there was in Gon's Nin ability? Or maybe it was me just hating Killua's ability due to seeing it in every single Naruto fanfic under the sun. After around a half hour passed on the beach, the boat finally began moving towards the beach. Seeing this, the remaining examinees seemed to get a bit excited or more animated. On the other hand, Killua and myself were worried since our friends were still missing. I hope nothing really changed. It would be quite sad if the rest of the group could not pass the exam. Though I guess they are just fashionably late as always. They better be. Looking around at the tree line in the distance, I kept an eye out for any signs of my friends appearing. BZZZT. The time frame of the exam has just ended. Any badges collected or stolen from this point forward will no longer count. Any contestants who are not present on the beach will have 5 minutes to make their way into the clearing or will otherwise be disqualified. After the 5 minutes have passed, we will begin inspecting the badges held by each contestant one by one and will then have you move on to the boat. Any further instructions will be given by exam staff. Diverting my attention from the forest were the loudspeakers coming from the slowly approaching boat. Following the end of the announcement, many more examinees began making their way out of the forest. Oh, there they are. Once again gaining my attention was the seemingly disinterested voice of Killua as he pointed a bit to the left of where I was originally looking. It seems they made it through right at the end. Again. Being almost disappointed in myself for being worried, I stared at the approaching group of 3 with a blank look. Chapter 27. It's good to see you all again. With a slight smile on his tired face, Gon waved towards us as he along with Leorio and Kurapika hurried over towards the small patch of shade I and Killua were standing in whilst waiting to turn in our badges. Good to see you guys as well. I'm glad you're still all in one piece. Though you still look a bit rough around the edges. Commenting about the numerous lumps and inflamed portions of his body from his encounter with Barbon's snakes, I teased Leorio a bit as we moved towards the lineup at the Hunters Association boat. That's rich coming from you, bastard. From behind me I heard the angry grumblings of Leorio. Hey, I am just calling it as I see it. Speaking of which, what exactly happened to you guys? Both you and Gon look like you got caught in an angry swarm of bees. With a light chuckle at the end of my sentence, we continue to discuss our experiences on the island. Can 16th place please come to the boat? I repeat, can 16th place please come to the boat? Thank you. Interrupting our discussion, however, was the female exam staff who sent us off a week ago. Seeing that she was calling for me, I quickly excused myself from our group and walked over at a quick pace to exchange my badges. Hello, I will need your badge number and name to confirm your identity before proceeding. With a short, almost practiced sentence, the exam staff professionally questioned me whilst referencing her clipboard, which most likely had all the examinees' information on it. Contestant number 38, magenta-magenta. Out of courtesy I replied with the same swift manner so as to not waste any time. After which she flips a few pages on her as her eyes scan the page. Eventually she looks up to me and nods, seemingly confirming that I am indeed myself. Next, I need any and all badges you have on your person at this time. Sticking her hand palm upwards in expectation, I quickly took my 2 badges out of my waistband and put them in her hand. Afterward, she quickly looks at the badges and confirms both their numbers and authenticity, and shortly afterward a small practiced customer service smile on her face appears. Congratulations, you have passed the 4th exam, please now make your way onto the boat. Stepping aside, the exam staff gestured to the small board serving as a bridge to the boat. Okay. Moving on to the boat and sitting down on the deck in a similar manner as I did on the way to the island, I began to wait around for the rest of the contestants to get on board. Man, I hope they provide some food and a shower house sometime soon. Also, a bed could be pretty nice. Though it probably isn't best to relax before this whole thing is done, but unwinding a bit before the finale will certainly be nice. Looking back at the beach, I saw that there were only a few people left that had to make their way onto the boat. Time skip to evening. Sitting in a small lounge area was our small group as we sat around and enjoyed each other's company as we were waiting. In particular, we were waiting to be interviewed, as we were first told when we were brought into this manor that we needed to be on standby. Though the first thing I did was take a shower, And thankfully, since the Hunter Association is practically made of money, there were some spare clothes I could change into whilst waiting for my stuff to get washed. Soon after that, I met everyone else in the cafeteria for late lunch, where we all rested up and celebrated getting this far while exploring the large manor owned by the Hunter Association. Leading to the present, we were all sitting in a lounge room we occupied for ourselves as we all sat around a table while playing cards. A weird thing to note was that while apparently, some basic games from my past life existed here, various subversions or obscure games. Like they had poker and all that, but they didn't have Texas Hold'em, though that might just be because it's called something else here. But some favorite games of mine weren't even here. Ha! I win. Fuck you. Placing the last card in his hand down, Leorio stood up triumphantly while punching his fist into the air. However, while he was too busy celebrating, he didn't notice the shit-eating grin on my face. Man, giving penalty cards is what makes this game my favorite, and is probably why Uno is a close second when it comes to card games, because although at a first glance it might seem like we are all playing Uno or a version of it, we were certainly not. Talking, didn't say Mao, swearing. As I began saying a series of various phrases, all the joy from Leorio's face is instantly drained as he stares dumbly at me while sitting down in shock. For each and every phrase said, I dealt one card to Leorio, putting him back into the game with 3 cards. What do I have to call something out for my final card? I thought it was when you only had 1 card left. Not understanding what happened to his victory, he confusedly asked about the rules, or in particular the rules he didn't follow. Talking about the rules, didn't say thank you. After he was done speaking, I began to count off more rules he broke while dealing him more cards, bringing him up to 6 cards. Man, I love this game. Said game being Mao, a very customizable game that is designed to be painful for new players while being a blast for people who know what they are doing. The best part being whoever won a round could create a new rule for the following rounds. Some games can even be ongoing with tens of customs rules at play. Creak pulling me out of my thoughts, I turned around, hearing the sound of the door opening, to see another contestant, Pakal, walk in. Sorry if I interrupted something, but I am here for a magenta-magenta? You need to go to the main floor for your interview. Well, see you around and best of luck. Having said all he needed to, he turned around and left the room. Yes. I don't have to play this game anymore, ha ha ha. See you later, bastard. Waving me off with glee, Leorio was in his own little world. Talking, swearing. Dealing Leorio 2 cards was Kurapika as he smiled at the aspiring doctor. Chapter 28. Walking into the Japanese-styled room that was in stark contrast to the rest of the manor, my eyes immediately focused on the man who was sitting behind a low table on a floor pillow. If I remember properly, those are called zabuton? Though that's the last thing I should be thinking about. Moving closer towards the strongest human in the world, I sat across from him on the provided cushion. Afterwards was a short moment of silence as he seemed to appraise me. Welcome. Suddenly breaking the silence, Isaac Netero with a large goofy smile on his face. Ah, thank you for having me. Out of surprise from the sudden tonal shift, I subconsciously replied in an awkward manner. As you already know, I wish to ask each of the contestants a few questions before the final exam. Nothing too hard though, I hope you don't mind humoring me? Pausing for a moment, he looked at me, waiting for some sort of response. Seeing as there was no real issue with doing so, I nodded. I see, thank you for your cooperation, young man. First, I would like to ask what inspired you to become a hunter? You must certainly have a lot of motivation to get this far during your first attempt at the exam. With his first question being asked, I began to ponder how I would formulate my answer. While I already did some good old reincarnation/transmigration staple soul searching, but to put it in words was a bit tricky. I guess it would be a good way to kickstart things. Unsure of how to word it, I decided to be vaguer and later clarify if there was any issue with such an answer. Could you please be more elaborate? If not, that is fine as well. Looking somewhat interested by my response, Netero began to push for more details. I mean, even I would be unsatisfied with my answer. Inwardly sighing, I began to ponder a more detailed response before I looked back at the chairman and began to speak once again. No, it's fine. What I mean was that I felt like I haven't really done all that much with my life. It was repetitious and quite boring, and it never really clicked with me. After realizing that I found myself catching word of the upcoming Hunter exam, and mostly by luck I made my way to the opening part of the exam. "Oh? So you decided to approach the exam on a whim and got here by luck?" Chuckle. Well, it is a good thing to be adventurous, but it is best not to rely on luck, as you never know when it will run out. Looking out of the window, it seemed he was remembering something, in particular something unpleasant, as his lips curled into a small frown whilst he was thinking. "Yeah. There were many close calls here and there, but I did make my way through the exam using anything I had at hand. Though it was probably just luck once again that got me here. I didn't really prepare or train for anything. I knew some rumors about the exams and their difficulty, but I just decided to opt in. Though, whether I pass or fail, I think this whole experience has been a great eye-opener for all the great and fantastical sights the world has to offer. Hopefully, after this I will find something out there that fits me. That is why I called this exam a great way to start things." Having gotten all my thoughts out, I looked towards Netero to guide the conversation further. "Very well, moving on. Among the other 9 candidates, which one, in particular, holds your interest or attention?" Seeing that I was done speaking, Netero moved on to the next question in our interview. If there is one person who I am the most interested in, then it's probably 404? But that's probably because he is the person I have gotten to know the most during this exam. He seems to be a very driven person with large ambition, and I wonder what and how he will do to accomplish it. All things considered, Kurapika was the most notable person remaining in the exam, at least to me anyway. This was mostly due to me knowing Gon's entire story arc. From what I heard from some online friends in my past life, the focus of the story shifts from Gon to Kurapika at the end of the election arc, and most of his character development was done. Not only that, but Leorio was apparently outside of the picture later on, but that makes sense. I mean, he wants to be a doctor, so personal power doesn't matter to him. Leaving only Kurapika, Killua, Hisoka, and Illumi as people of interest. And only Hisoka and Kurapika are unknowns to me that I have any actual curiosity about, because I never read the manga, so I have no clue where he will end up, and as a friend, I am both interested and concerned. Getting out of my thoughts, I look at the chairman and wait to see if he had any further inquiries regarding this topic, or if we would move on to the next question. Final question: who do you wish to fight the least? Picking up the pace compared to his last 2 questions, Netero asked most likely the easiest question yet. "Oh well, probably number 44 and 301. I would probably die if I ever got into any sort of confrontation with them." With an immediate reply, I easily answered the question. I mean, I have no chance against trained and experienced fighters with mastery in Nen. "Oh? That was quite fast. Any reason for that? Additionally, I thought you wouldn't have wanted to fight your friends, yet you didn't say anything about them?" Having caught his attention again with my answer, Netero decided to question me more about my answer concerning who I would not like to fight. "Well, I had a run-in with Hisoka in the first exam, and I know for a fact that I would have no chance against him. Well, it's more instinctively like I can feel that he is really strong. As for Jitaraker, he also has an unsettling presence, I suppose. And concerning my friends, I think it would be quite fun to have a friendly spar or something, and I wouldn't mind a good fight." Easily explaining myself, I spoke a mixture of half-truths, which is what I have been doing this whole time really. When we fought Hisoka, it felt oppressing with how powerful he was when we encountered him. And something similar could be said about Illumi. While his power was most likely completely concealed, the atmosphere he gave off was much too unsettling for me. Chapter 29. Well, I guess you'll have to get ready for tomorrow. Not that there's really anything I can do to prepare myself, as it's just a fighting tournament. Having left the Japanese-styled room after finishing my interview, I began looking for the next person to send to Netero. Man, where's this guy though? Though that was proving to be a difficult undertaking, as I still haven't found who I am looking for, even after turning nearly the whole manor upside down during the process of trying to find him. Man, why didn't they use the announcement system? They used it to notify us that we would eventually be interviewed, but not for alerting individuals. Walking out the back door of the large estate, I entered the rather large garden. Looking around the carefully kept garden, I took a long intake of air as I appreciated the aesthetics of the place. I probably should have come out here earlier considering who I'm looking for. Though it's kind of stereotypical that the martial artist guy is hanging around in the great outdoors rather than the nice air-conditioned mansion behind me. What next? Is he meditating in a waterfall? Yeah, let's find him sooner than later, as this heat is killer. Quickly navigating around the garden on the various brick walkways, I looked around for a short while before eventually finding the person I had been looking for the past 20 minutes. Ah, hello. Sorry about interrupting you, but the chairman wants you for his interview. Looking at the older man who was ignoring my announcement as he continued to move through various cottages. Man who uses their break to train. Couldn't be me, that's for sure. Though it's annoying this guy is ignoring me. I guess he is in the zone that some athletes experience. I wouldn't know, as I was previously the opposite of physically active, waiting for him to come to some sort of stopping point. I stood there for a minute or two as he continued to practice various punches and kicks. Hey, can you hear me out for a second? However, seeing as how he was nowhere near finishing, I called out to him once again, though like the first time I was met with no response. Sir, I need to inform you of something. It's important. Stepping closer and raising my voice while continually trying to get him to notice my presence was futile. Walking closer to the martial artist, I went up behind him and reached to gently tap him on the shoulder, yet before my hand could reach his shoulder he suddenly pivoted around and grabbed my hand as well as the scruff of my shirt before flipping me over his head. Looking at the old man in surprise as my vision seemed to slow down as my back got closer and closer to meeting the ground. I made eye contact with Badoro, who looked just as surprised as myself. Did this motherfucker just grapple me subconsciously? What retirement house did your senile ass crawl out of? Being unable to do anything besides mentally cursing as my body was flung into a large flower bed. Fuck. Looking up at the visage of a worried Badoro standing over me and an annoyed gardener staring daggers at me as I lay on the ground in slight discomfort. Sorry young man, I didn't mean to do that, but you should know it is unwise to approach someone who practices martial disciplines from behind, as they could react far worse than I did. In the future, you should have said something to gain my attention. In a patronizing tone, he began lecturing me about all his martial arts bullshit, and I really wasn't having it. Standing up and waltzing out of the flower bed, I snappily turned around and faced him. First of all, I did try to catch your attention by speaking 3 separate times, but you couldn't hear me for whatever reason. Second, who the fuck just flings people around for tapping their shoulder? And third, what is with you damn old geezers calling everyone else young man? Need to keep reminding yourself that your dementia-ridden ass is 1 foot in the grave. Look, I am in a terrible mood as I just got all cleaned up a few hours ago and I need to go and wash up again, so I am just going to let you know that you need to report to the chairman. Walking back towards the manor in a worse mood than when I left it earlier, I quickly made my way towards the room I was temporarily dorming inside of. And shortly after another shower and changing back into my original set of clothes, I made my way back to the lounge room where I left my friends previously. Oh? It's the old geezer. Before I could even touch the doorknob on the lounge door, I heard Killua's voice alerting the rest of the occupants of my arrival. That's the last thing I want to be called right now. Swinging the door open, I was met with everyone greeting me as I made my way towards the seat I occupied earlier in the day. Welcome back, Magenta-san. Being as cheerful as ever, Gon waved at me before quickly turning his attention to the board game on the center table. Hello. While not looking my way, Kurapika acknowledged my presence in the room as he was busy moving a white piece on the board. Oh, it's you. Leorio on the other hand seemed to still be pissed from when we played games previously. So what are you guys doing now? Not really recognizing at first glance the board or pieces of the game Kurapika and Killua were playing, I asked out of curiosity. What, you never played shogi before? Looking over at me in slight surprise, Killua was somewhat confused about my unfamiliarity with the game. I mean, I have heard of it, and now that I heard the name again I kinda remember what the board and pieces looked like, but I only know how to play chess even if I suck at it, and like that for the rest of the afternoon until the evening, we spent time playing various games to pass time as we had no real clues as to what the final exam would entail. And while I do know how the final played out in the exam, these past exams have been slightly different and my involvement may change the type of tournament or the bracket. Well, that is all future me's problems. Chapter 30. EP beep beep beep. Waking up to the sound of a digital alarm clock, I roll around in my bed for a small moment before willing myself to get up. Yawn. Sitting up in my bed, I lean over to the nightstand and turn off the alarm clock. Well, now that I am awake, let's get ready for what's coming up today. Getting up and taking a morning shower to wake myself up for the day and make my way down to the lobby where we were told to congregate before 9 o'clock. Though before getting there I made sure to drop by the kitchens and grabbed a muffin for my breakfast and ate on my way down to the meeting location. Creak. Opening the door into the lobby gave a slight whine, much like every door or hinged object in this place. They can afford blimps, manners, staffs, the probably ludicrous legal fees for all the bullshit hunters get into, hiring staff, the fortune that goes into organizing these exams, and they can't afford a can of WD-40. Finding a spot to sit in the room while I waited for everyone to meet up in the room, as I got here a little earlier than I expected. Like an hour of uncomfortable sitting in silence later. While everyone was standing around in silent anticipation, the atmosphere slowly got tenser and tenser as the wait got longer. Though when the door suddenly opened and the clacking of wooden sandals filled the room disturbing the silence, everyone turned to look at the chairman of the Hunters Association, as he was flanked on either side by men in black suits with sunglasses. Like this guy of all people needs bodyguards. Hey! Looking at the newcomers to the room and finding the irony in security when the world's strongest man is in the same room, I was a bit excited about what was coming. Thank you all for coming on time. I would like to once again congratulate everyone for making it this far. In a moment we will be bringing this examination to an end. We will be conducting the final in a format of one-on-one duels. The bracket for the tournament is as follows. Quickly grabbing the sheet covering a roll-out whiteboard that was quickly positioned behind Netero while he was speaking by one of his bodyguards, he unveiled the tournament bracket. Mutter mutter. As soon as he revealed the unorthodox and unbalanced tournament bracket, everyone began to voice their confusion and displeasure or ask for an explanation about how it was made. Ah, and I forgot to add something. The rules for the last round are as follows. 1 victory and you pass the exam and are removed from the tournament. Essentially whoever ends up at the top of the exam loses. And being the old troll he was, Netero decided to throw some fuel on the fire. So only one person will be eliminated in the final? In the back of the crowd was a bad cosplayer who couldn't decide between a Sentai Ranger and a Mr. Clean Get-Up, being Hanzo the ninja, who asked about the winning conditions. Yes, only one person will not become a hunter today, and to make things fair everyone has at least 2 chances to win. Why is the bracket unbalanced? Continuing the Q&A session was Badoro as he asked about the construction of the tournament. This bracket was created by taking the culmination of all your exploits during the previous phases of the exam. The people who have better potential or a better showing are given a higher chance to pass than those who are average. Here at the Hunters Association, we want the best of the best after all. Ending his little speech with a goofy grin, he looked around for any other questions. I don't like it. Explain how you calculated the positions. Looking generally dissatisfied with the explanation, Killua stared Netero down with a glare as he waited for some sort of explanation. Well, I can't tell you how we exactly do that as it's a trade secret. But we mostly account for your strength, mind, and charisma. Strength is self-explanatory, being things like speed, power, the 5 senses, and flexibility. Mind, on the other hand, is about how you adapted to new or dangerous situations, skills you brought to the table, creation, or how you have grown in the course of the test. But what truly got you here to the end game was your charisma, and that is something that is really hard to quantify, but it is truly the most essential part of a hunter. The bracket was made with all these things in mind and you were placed accordingly. That is all I have to say on that matter. While he slowly explained the criteria to Killua, his goofy aura slowly morphed into a more serious and domineering one. His words had a serious weight to them as he deconstructed the 3 essential parts of a hunter and how our showing in the exam correlated to each part. HxH. Seemingly dissatisfied with the answer, or perhaps himself for scoring lower than he would have expected, Killua seemed to stop paying attention to what the chairman was saying as he began pondering on something. The fight's rules are simple in comparison. Weapons are allowed and anything goes except for killing your opponent, which will immediately disqualify you. To win you must make your opponent surrender. Finishing off all the rules and information needed for the final to commence, Netero stepped back as one of the bodyguards stepped up and took the role of a referee for the following matches. Let us begin the final round of the exam. The first match will be between Magenta and Gon. Standing in the middle of the arena, he called forth the first 2 contestants as everyone else moved back towards the wall and waited for the fight to begin. Soon after he spoke, the 2 named contestants walked to either side of the pitch as they prepared for a fight. Seeing that the 2 contestants were ready as they were going to get, the referee raised his hand as he was preparing to call the start of the match. Things really did change, huh? I wonder if my showing really was good enough to dictate me being this low on the bracket, but I won't look a gift horse in the mouth. I guess it makes sense. I have a decent physicality even if I am not a skilled fighter. I would like to think I have a good head on my shoulders and that I have learned and adapted to new situations. But I am unsure of the whole charisma thing. I'm just some asshole with meta-knowledge. On another note, I probably should have said I didn't want to fight Gon in the interview, all things considered, as he is too stubborn. Sigh.